Oh man, they tried to end Wesley. Wesley's the guy who goes to all the hotspots, I think usually in Europe and such. Like where all the angry people are, the protesters. Yeah, Wesley goes there and has been going there for years, and something really bad finally happened, and I watched a few seconds and I'm like, we should watch this together. But maybe just a few seconds. Yeah, maybe by the time all is said and done, Keir Starmer is gonna look like Wesley. Let's see.
I can't remember much due to concussion. They also took my camera and my mic, so I'm filming this on my phone.
Yeah, well, that's
so last week.
That's what you're
Friday,
supposed to use to film.
I was attacked in Paris at a protest.
It was
I've
Paris.
With a fractured orbital bone, nose. I can hardly open my left eye.
I'm just here to find out whether it was the fascists or the anti-fascists that did it, because it's anyone's guess. Wesley goes to these places where like a lot of truly angry people are, and usually people who just convince themselves they've got enough to be angry about to be this angry, give randos black eyes and such and worse. That's where he goes. It's like groups of people who are like that, It's not even their issue. They just want to signal stuff because they've got empty lives, and they see like there's a crowd of people who seems angry. So it's like, I'm going to be angry with this crowd of people, and then those people will like me, and then I'm going to have allies, and then I'm going to have power. Yeah, that's kind of the thought process behind the typical protest, fascist or anti-fascist. But let's see who did it to him.
I don't remember much due to concussion. They also took my camera and my mic, so I'm filming this on my phone.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
I didn't really want to have to make
use.
this kind of video, but I feel like I have to, just to set the story straight, and just avoid any future speculation. So I went to the Paris May Day protest last year. This year wasn't going to be any different, and having been to it before, I kind of knew what to expect. It's basically just a Workers' Day protest where a lot of left-leaning people come out. You do get some different groups that come along with it, such as Antifa, anarchists, and they all just march together as one. I don't remember much of what happened that day, but I'm going to piece it back together based on videos and pictures I've been sent by other people that were there. But from what I do remember is that I had lunch around 1 at a restaurant that was pretty much in the centre of where the protest was taking place. And at the beginning it was really calm, and I met up with some of the UK guys that were over there, as well as a French journalist who I knew locally who was also going to help me out on the day.
Yeah.
The most I remember is I ordered like a cheeseburger.
Doesn't even dox the people he hangs out with at these protests. Doesn't facially dox them. Just an ultimate professional, consummate professional, and do-it-yourself media kind of guy. And look what he gets for it.
Pretty good. And then after that, me and the French guy walked off to go interview some people. At that point, it's very similar to last year, calm atmosphere, almost like a festival. Then after that, my mind has gone completely blank. So I've gone off videos that have been sent. So you'll see in the videos, later on it gets more tense. The police...
Yeah, I think he probably just asked a question that none of them could answer, and they knew they couldn't answer, and then he maybe asked it again. And they're like, oh man, this guy's kind of clever and is making us look stupid. Let's get him.
This is a lot closer. They're getting a bit more confrontational. But you can see from the videos...
Yeah, the balaclavas, man. I clowned on so much of this balaclava stuff. There's Wesley footage from like 2024 and 2025 that I've got coming up later, but, I just have to do it now because, man, that's a bad beating.
I was at the front, on the fringes, as I usually am, just kind of minding my own business, talking to the camera.
Yeah.
Probably did a couple of interviews as well, but in general, I'm pretty safe. There were obviously some heated moments with the police. I know there's one clip where one of the protesters literally passes out and gets taken out by the police.
And say what you will, he did this in France. France has less to complain about than I think any other country that's being, mired in this, foreigner. There's foreigners and the natives don't like it. Yeah, the French far-right party couldn't even win an election.
Overall, it didn't seem like the police in general were overly violent to the protesters. Even some of the worst clips I found, it doesn't look like the police would have done anything to hit protesters. Nor would I get myself in that position.
I grant that, in theory, it's possible that protesters can be so rowdy to the point where it warrants the police being, aggressive, but just exactly proportionately aggressive to the kind of rowdiness they're seeing. But if you're like a radical, you know, then it's inconceivable, the idea that, yeah, the police can never be in the right for being aggressive against a mob of protesters when the mob is really, really rowdy and destructive of innocent persons' property, such as, you know, ma and pa shops. Yeah, I don't like ma and pa, but you shouldn't destroy a ma and pa shop if you're a rowdy protester. You shouldn't destroy anything. You should just make arguments. Hey, yeah, make arguments, mob. Don't be disruptive, and don't hurt Wesley, for Pete's sakes.
Have a fight with the police is not really my intention at all.
Yeah.
I'm always there just to film, ask questions.
Yeah, Wesley was civilized. Are you going to keep being civilized, or are you going to get vengeful? If you just keep getting beatings, he'll always be civilized, unlike some of us.
Try to create the story. I let it happen around me and just document it. I don't try to manipulate it or, you know, cause any trouble in any way just for the video. That's never my intentions. It's just to show you guys what's happening on the grounds. So the most crucial part of the protest is where it ends. It's basically a roundabout called Place
You
to
can get beaten up so bad that, like, even though you're doing a lot better than me as a YouTuber, I'll have enough sympathy for you to upvote you. That's how sympathetic Wesley is. Yeah, he's a YouTuber who's doing just a lot better, but he takes risks, and he's a genuine commentator and a genuine explorer of dangerous places, so he gets a thumb up from me.
Nation, however you say it in French, but it's basically just this roundabout where the police will eventually kettle most of the protesters. A lot of them will just hang around, but you can see from the videos...
Can like a radical thinker grant that at least sometimes, you know, the protesters can be just that out of control, and you got to have some level of aggression from the cops, preferably ending in, you know, mace and no other lethal tactics.
I've gotten that I'm pretty safe. You know, similar to the previous videos where I know what I'm doing and I look completely fine.
How are you feeling, Mr. Winters?
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, guys. We're into cycling.
Oh, it's a whirlwind of like running around everywhere, isn't it?
The police do eventually come in and start to throw tear gas, is what I saw from other videos.
Yeah, tear gas.
And this is where I do begin to put on my gas mask, and I have my goggles as well, which probably would have come in handy if I still had them on, if I got struck at all, but it must have calmed down.
You came prepared to deal with the wrath of the police, but not the wrath of the ones that the police were after.
But I felt the need to take them off. But as you can tell, I'm not going in there completely.
You know, and I like that the French citizenry is like ultra entitled and refuses to, whenever they talk about like, you know, changing the retirement age, even like by like a month or so, like, man, that French citizenry rises up pretty strongly. So there's good aspects of it, but, you know, they shouldn't be violent when they're protesting.
You know,
they should just be menacing.
Without any care in the world.
Yeah, use your vocal cords to be menacing. Don't use actions.
Caution when needed, and you see it from this clip.
Don't use actions against Wesley.
You can't talk with this fucking mask. I don't know. Pain.
Yeah, I'll just bring the microphone a bit closer to...
But overall, yeah, I do like the French for not taking a lot of shit from the, you know, well-to-do who think like you should work until you're 90.
I'm healthy. It seems to be okay.
And I think Ben Shapiro said, like, retirement itself is like a stupid idea. You should just work till you drop. He said that, unironically, and I'm like, yeah, that's why these French people are as crazy as they are. It's because like, there's Ben Shapiros in the world.
Big up, Wes.
Yeah.
Wes has gone goggles. Oh, mate, I've just had to put on gloves.
There's no gas mask sturdy enough to save you from the rabble. They got me while I was alone. That sums the cowards up. Biggest lie ever told is that the far left is all about inclusiveness and love. Well, they are, if you agree, if you toe the line. And even if you don't agree, they don't care as long as you're silent about it. Yeah, but if you don't agree and you say stuff about it, then you very soon find out that the inclusivity is just skin deep. The violent, unhinged left, sure. Yeah, I won't be nitpicky. Say it very simplistically and one-dimensionally. The violent, unhinged left. I'll say it with ya. They killed a young French student called Quentin who was protecting some women being harassed during a protest in Paris not long ago. Yeah, in the US, it's ICE who kills the decent man who protects the woman. And in Paris, it's not ICE, it's the rabble. And You know, it's every bit as unjustified, probably, if you look into it. But yeah, even the U.S. Progressives who hate ICE, yeah, they won't care that much that, yeah, you know, Quentin gets killed by those who are like-minded to you. Yeah, we'll only condemn the killing when it's done by people who are not like-minded to us. Antifa murdered someone in France recently. They are a terror group, in my opinion. No, because there can only be one terror group. There can be like different origins of terror groups. Yeah, I don't know. Have you really done the quantification there, buddy? If the right were half as violent as the left, there wouldn't be a left. Yeah, you're talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people worldwide. You know, how can you know? And plus, there's these departments that at least claim to tabulate it impartially, you know, in America. And yeah, you know, they are more violent. But worldwide, it's a toss-up at this point, it seems. Yeah, so again, a guy who thinks he's done the calculation. It's a real hard thing to calculate, you know, worldwide, who does it more? But in the US, it's not the progressives yet, although they're giving the fascists a run for their money.
So as the police come in, they start to disperse people. It's important to note at this point, I get a text from the French wife.
Did he film his own attack? I don't think he filmed his own attack, but I think he filmed how he looked when he was...
Right, look at the state of it.
hang on.
And I'm just completely delirious and just out of it.
Can't even open my eye, look at the state of it. Got hit on the back of the head, I think, as well. Eyes are swollen. This has been stitched up. Fractured cheekbone or something.
So I spent the Friday in hospital, got discharged the next day.
No joke. It's admirable that he is so cool-headed that he's not threatening to kick anyone's ass back. Like, I think throughout this whole video, probably. I'll watch the rest of it on my own, and if he does threaten to kick anyone's ass who kicked his ass, I will correct this statement. But I know Wesley, and he'd never do that. You know, he's too civil.
They've done CT scans, have shown
Unlike some of us.
I've got a fractured eye, fractured nose, but they couldn't operate on anything because the swelling was so big. It's still swollen now. So since I've come back to the UK as well, I've been in and out of hospital. I've seen the doctor. They're going to do further scans.
You should have stayed in France. You know, it would have cost you less.
Well, I know those law books mean a lot to you, but not out here. Out here, a man settles his own problems.
But to attack people just because you might label them far right, Nazi, a fascist, it doesn't give an excuse to attack someone. You know, you see at these protests, they have signs like "Smash the far right," and the left will use these terminologies to justify their violence because in their eyes, you're the enemy. But in reality, I'm literally just an ordinary person.
I'm going to try not to spend too much time on Raider, but they've just got so many of these things that they spout that you can see how it'd be useful, but it's just a pet peeve of mine. Because they don't think about like the different angles in which it can be interpreted and taken. You know, they don't think about it, like not even for like a nanosecond, right? Fascism is not to be debated, it is to be smashed. So fascism being a co-ed ideology, you know, it invites males and females. You could argue if it didn't invite females, it, you know, like one of its main things couldn't be pulled off. So it's uncontroversial to grant that there's male and female fascists, and likewise male and female non-fascists and anti-fascists. And so when you say stuff like this, you know, I'm pretty sure there have been people who lived for decades on end spouting this and feeling very good about themselves as they spout it, but then not doing one of those alt takes where it's like, yeah, what it means is just countless men punching in, you know, or punching out the lights of countless women. You know, so what then? It's like this record. Yeah, it's like this record. You know, man punches Nazi. She dies in hospital. What then? What then? Do you smash to the point where, you know, she dies in hospital? No, I'm pretty sure Rader's gentlemanly enough to the point where he would be, you know, circumspect to smash, you know, equal opportunity smash. Sure, you know. Yeah, sure. Why not? But yeah, if you're progressive on the debt, you're gonna have a progressive debt like beyond 39 trillion. And I think that if left to his own devices, like I'm sure if someone brings it up, you know, and really strong arms him into it, he'll say, yeah, it's bad. There's 39 trillion and all kinds of compound debt. It's bad, but still, man, we gotta uplift the people of today. So I'm still gonna be progressive on all matter of things, including the debt, because we gotta uplift the people of today, man. Yeah, thou shalt not kill, and also thou shalt not get rich if I'm skilled enough to be rich, while others aren't skilled enough to be rich, even just modestly rich. Yeah, if others aren't skilled and have to die because of their lack of skills. Oh man, it's all about Melania now, because Melania said something like in the White House on the floor, and now it's like the whole country's Melania made a speech. Yeah, Melania, and like Raider's like gonna be like he's gonna be a fiend. Yeah, sure, a fiend about it. Hang on, let's hear. It's super important.
An email as well.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Epstein files that have been released over
yeah, she's gonna try to cover her ass. No fucking shit.
Period of time. It's an email, I believe, from September October 2002. An email.
And Raider's gonna pretend Raider cares, but all Raider cares about is that like the Hispanics and the illegals, that we all pretend that they're not illegal, and the open border thing happens. Yeah, that's all Raider cares about. And he'll latch himself on to all these, you know, nearby things that can be advantageous to that. Yeah, Melania said something and like something else is true. No fucking shit. Yeah, there's photo evidence. But is there photo evidence? You know, it could just be the case that, you know, it's a party. And so like you go to parties to like get your pictures taken with people you barely know, you know, because that means you're cool. And then when it comes time to like have buyer's remorse, you're like, oh no, I just went there because like I wanted to be like the person who gets their pictures taken of with people who aren't my friends, so that I seem like I have more friends than I actually do, so that I can seem cool. But like, no, she's not actually my friend. I just have my picture taken with her so I can seem more cool. And I guess Donald's that way too. But now we're on the, evil Epstein class. But now we're like, you know, what, they're going to be washed away? Is that the implication? Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a blue wave that's going to wash them away unless they figure it out in advance. Yeah, he's going to figure out your blue wave in advance. Just watch him. Just watch him do it. But now we're in the comments. I want to do a few more Raider things, because Raider's just so fucking, you know, slithery. You know, the thing that a lot of people are saying in terms of the, you know, and this still is awful. You know, I haven't changed my mind on this. The ice holes are still ice holes. But the problem is, the very things that they say, yeah, see, the 9th. It's like ever more newer ice holing. The problem is, the problem is that like what the Europeans are now saying about, you know, even if you guys vote sensibly for like a few election cycles, we're still not going to trust you because you guys didn't vote sensibly in 2 or 3 very important election cycles. There was like a huge chunk of you who like voted nothing like sensibly. And so let's say that they elect like these normal presidents for like 4 election cycles. Does that mean that the Europeans, you know, the EU fans and such, should jump back into bed with Americans? Like, no, because Americans as an electorate have shown themselves to be erratic. But, you know, that's kind of on the geopolitical stage. Like Europeans are saying, you know, you guys aren't trustworthy. You guys may like lose your shit and like abuse us, even though we didn't like do anything. So we're going to keep our distance from you. America is like an abusive partner. But then like people like Raider didn't get it. that like there's a parallel lesson to be drawn from that. What the Europeans are saying, you know, America's too volatile to be trusted. Like that just is true when it comes to like non-whites living in America. But see, they think that like once you smash fascism, you would have smashed fascism forever. And then like, yeah, we should have an open borders policy where like, yeah, non-whites from all over the world come to America to live happily ever after. To dream. Yeah, to dream. But it's like, no, Raider. You don't solve problems permanently, just like the Europeans get it now. Europeans get it that America is dangerous in a non-domestic sense, in a foreign affairs sense. In a few successful elections, not going to change that. But then the same holds true of America domestically in terms of its racism. But like so many people are just too fucking weak to get it. It just makes sense to tell non-whites not to come to America. Or to tell the non-whites who currently are in America, yeah, see, Megan, yeah, I went to bat for Megan, and Megan's my girl. Megan gets it.
Cheer lead. That's it. It's all about rah, 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 go military. That's what's patriotic. Praise the president, support the troops, support the war.
Yeah, Megan remembers what happened 20 years ago with Iraq, unlike some.
Or day in, day out. This morning, what did they put on? Mike Pompeo.
Yeah, so anyway, my point here is that what a lot of people get that, you know, America is like a hot stove. You know, once it stops being hot, doesn't mean it's not going to get hot again. And so you don't touch the hot stove. And so like the EU folks is like, we're going to try to do this ourselves because we don't want to risk touching hot stoves anymore. And so like these weak, extremely weak, just like emotionally, psychologically weak, open borders, there must be diversity type of people, like they're too weak to understand that America, even when you do away with this, like it may turn into a hot stove again. And so you endanger those non-whites by telling them to either keep coming to America, like if there's a Democratic president or Democrat president, you tell them to come to America. Like what if, you know, once they're in, then it gets bad again? No, because they're just too fucking weak to give up on their diversity. It's like a principle for them because they're weak. Yeah.
Images and stories are completely false.
Yeah, but she can be safe in America no matter what. She doesn't even have to learn the language. Yeah.
I'm not a witness or a name witness in connection with any of Epstein's crimes.
You're not even like a witness to your own thoughts. That's what you're not. You're not even a witness to whatever passes for thoughts in your little munchkin brain. But yeah, isn't that like the ultimate point to, you know, draw up against these progs? It's like, why aren't the progs who are like, no, we'll win this back, man. These non-whites, there'll be a day in America where all non-whites will be safe from white supremacy. We just gotta keep fighting. So why don't you guys tell the Europeans then the same thing, right? Don't give up on America, Europeans. We'll expunge this crap, this reactionary crap forever. And then America's gonna go back to being your friend permanently. No, they're not. No matter how many no Kangs protests you have, there's nothing predictable about America ever.
Agent, and it destroyed his eyeball and fractured the bones in his eyes.
No, because we gotta tell all those non-whites that America is a place where you can go to dream. Yeah, that's what America is. It's a place for people who really are hell-bent on dreaming. It's like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough that we get to dream when we're asleep. No. America, the place for folk who want to dream while they're awake. And these morons want to make it like, you know, they want to perpetuate the delusion. Yeah, there must be a place called America where you get to dream even when you're awake, because it's not good enough. It's not good enough to dream when we're asleep.
Tucker suffered a life-altering injury documenting a protest.
But I'm just saying, you know, be a man and tell people who want to dream while they're awake that they're not entitled to that. So hopefully they can just have good dreams while they're asleep, because those are the only dreams they're gonna get. The moment you wake up, you gotta stay woken up, Raider. You gotta stay woken up. And I don't say this with any kind of glee. It sucks that America is sufficiently unsafe for non-whites. That sucks. But it's a fucking gamble. Yeah, see? Detained. It's a fucking gamble. And you guys just can't fucking admit it. You guys think if Trump is done, if Trump dies, it's no longer a gamble for non-whites. But I'm here to tell you, America, for the foreseeable long-distant future, will remain a gamble for non-whites. Just as it will for the Europeans. So just, you know, let that truth settle. Let that truth settle, all of you, and then you won't compromise the safety of all those non-whites. Yeah, see? They're like outnumbered. The MAGAs are like outnumbered, and they still think they can tase the crowd. That's like... Oh, man, see? That's just how much race means to him. Like the white race and the survival of the white race and the not being, you know, the George Soros. Like, he so doesn't want to be tricked by George Soros' replacement plot. He's like gonna tase like perfect strangers. Watch. That's like how devoted he is to the race. Oh man, I think this is like, there's some Muslim thing going on here too. Oh, it's like when the Christians and the Muslims... Oh, you don't even know how to insult them, do you? Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe maybe I'd have a taser or two if there was some Muslim antics near me. Yeah. Wait, what? Why is there a... It's downtown Dallas. It's downtown Dallas. It's downtown Dallas. Of course he has a taser. I thought this was America. I thought... Why is there a Allahu Akbar vibes? I thought this was America. Yeah. Tasers for all. Tasers for all.
In your proximity, little man, it is difficult to think. One can only think about you and not with you, for you choke any great sweeping thought. Damn, I just got it working.
It feels like the world's gone backwards. Well, it has.
No, but do you know what you're saying to me? You know, you're saying just exactly what Liberty Valance said. What kind of a community have I come to?
It feels like the world's gone backwards. Well, it has.
Yeah, he's gonna figure out your blue wave in advance. I don't want it to happen. Just watch him do it. I sound. We're in the comments. I sound enthusiastic. I don't want him to succeed at that. I want him to fail. You know, if you watch like long term, it doesn't even need saying. But you know, just in case I haven't been saying it enough as of late. Yeah, I want him to fail. I want there to be a blue wave. A few more Raider things, because Raider's just so fucking... And there was another thing here. Hang on. Slithery. No, not that. Yeah, that. Yeah. What does it say? You know, U.S. has let like 5,000 refugees in since October. All but 3 were South African. Okay, so there's that, you know, subcategory of South African that I don't want to pronounce because I don't think I'll do it right. And so it's a white minority group. It's being persecuted, right? So 5,000 since October and 3 were South African and given a priority to like a white minority. So, you know, the sentiment here being that Raider's concerned about is that more non-whites, you know, should be refugees into America. But America's fascist. And so I just invite everyone to think back to the 30s and to the 40s when there was fascism. And think about how weird it would be. I'll use weird. You know, they're using weird nonstop, so I'll use weird too. As a sneaky pejorative. Imagine how weird it would be if, like, people who were in Nazi Germany or in some other anti-Semitic stronghold or wherever, it doesn't matter, you know, and it doesn't matter what the minority is. It can be anyone. It can even be Slavs, you know. So imagine it's like, you know, there were like people in Italy who are like, you know, Italy is now fascist and it's not letting in enough of the outgroup members to save from the other places that are worse than the fascist place, right? So yeah, it seems like an SNL sketch, but it's true. And all these fucking progs, like, they can't even consider the fact that it's something that they have to cover their bases on, but they don't. Like, they're all frothing, like, yeah, it's fascist, man. It's been fascist since the 80s, actually. It's not just Trump. It's been fascist since the 80s. But now it's like double fascist. But we want more non-whites to be let in to the fascist place so they can be abused. Because the other places, the non-fascist places, the non-white majority countries, non-fascist though they may be, they're still worse than the fascist America because we want those refugees safe in fascist America. Come on! Come on! How can I not have a bad attitude? Yeah, I'm supposed to, not think too hard and just smash fascism. That's what I'm supposed to do. But no, you motherfuckers are so thick, you're making it impossible. Even for someone as benevolent as me, you're making it impossible. What the fuck? Let more whites in to the fascist place, ruled by the fascists with impunity, so they can be safer. Okay, fine. Arguably, on average, they'll be safer in America than, wherever America fucked up before. Or wherever the other places have their own problems, apart from American influence. But then, maybe the word that you're going to say is the right word to use that was used for Germany and Japan and Italy and all that shit. Yeah. Maybe that word obscures matters more than it illuminates. The word fascism. Yeah, you want fascism's victims under fascism so they can be victimized less than elsewhere. I'm just saying, maybe fascism's, maybe just, this lingo stuff obscures matters more than it illuminates. That's all I'm saying. I want to be an ally. It's serious business. The thing that a lot of people are saying in terms of So there's bad stuff, but man, maybe the refugees should go to some other decent, civilized country that's not being called fascist by, everyone.
Indeed, the mere sound of words ending in ism seems to bring with it the smell of propaganda.
Man, look at it go.
What kind of a community have I come to?
This is a Fox News special report, or Fox News special alert, whatever it was. I can't quite muster the ecstatic voice because I'm just so deflated by what I just saw. So let's get on with it.
Well, new data from the CDC shows the U.S. fertility rate reached another record low last year. Only 53.1 births per 1,000 women aged.
It's not the bad part.
15 to 44. So that continues a nearly 2-decade-long trend. Let's bring in Dr. Mark Siegel, Fox News senior medical analyst, and of course the author of the most amazing book.
The begetting specialist. They brought on a begetting specialist to explain the data.
The Miracles Among Us. Okay,
man.
Here's the fertility chart, just so everybody can see this.
There was a subheading.
Miracles Among Us.
How God's grace plays a role in healing. Yeah, I don't see too many healed people south of the border, so I guess they weren't praying hard enough.
Okay, here's the fertility chart, just so everybody can see this. I don't think this...
It's really bad. So maybe, to those of you who are firebrand anti-natalist or even just firebrand child-free, maybe look away. Maybe I should do a South Park style. The following content is not suitable for all no Avail viewers.
Friend is not going
to... the following content may contain some scenes and some sentiments that some viewers may find very disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. It's Fox News.
A big surprise to people, but the numbers might feel a little...
I'm not exaggerating.
Shocking. How do you see it?
I'm not exaggerating. The following sentiments may contain sentiments that are just really revolting to, you know, it should be all viewers. But I still have the stomach for it. But man, even I'm deflated after what he just said.
Absolutely. We still have 3.6 million births a year, but the problem is teens and young adults. From ages 15 to 19, the fertility rate is down 7%, and it's down 70% over the last 2 decades, meaning we're telling people that are young not to have babies, to wait till they're in a more stable life situation, till they're more financially secure, maybe they haven't found the right partner.
Well, new data from the CDC shows the U.S. fertility rate reached another record low last year.
But the problem is teens and young adults. From ages 15 to 19, the fertility rate is down 7%, and it's down 70% over the last 2 decades, meaning we're telling people that are young not to have babies, to wait till they're in a more stable life situation.
Like, you know, the ABCs of prudence. But I guess George Soros is just that thirsty to have like the whites be a thing of the past.
The more financially secure.
We can now say goodbye to the ABCs of prudence. Listen.
The problem is teens and young adults. From ages 15 to 19, the fertility rate is down 7%, and it's down 70% over the last 2 decades. Not to have babies, to wait till they're in a more stable life situation, till they're more financially secure.
It feels like the world's gone backwards. Well, it has. It has.
The receptive powers of the masses are very restricted, and their understanding is feeble. Such being the case, all effective propaganda must be confined to a few bare essentials, and those must be expressed in stereotyped formulas. These slogans should be persistently repeated until the very last individual has come to grasp the idea that has been put forth.
What? I don't know nothing.
Oh, what a lovely turnout we have today. So great to see each and every one of you. And how are you doing today? I'm fine, thanks. And how are you? I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing today? I'm fine, I suppose. And how are you? I'm great, thank you. So great to see you all today. And how are you? I'm fine, I suppose. Thanks. And how are you? I'm great, thank you. So great to see you all here today. And how are you? I'm doing fine, I suppose. Thanks. And how are you doing? I'm doing great, thank you. So great to see you all here today. And how are you? I'm doing fine, I guess. Thanks. And how are you doing? I'm doing great. Thank you. It's so great to see you all here today. And how are you? I'm doing fine, I guess. Thanks. And how are you doing? I'm doing great. Thank you. So great to see you all here today. How are you? I'm doing fine, I guess. Thanks. see you all here today. How are you? I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you doing? I'm doing great, thank you. So great to see you all here today. And how are you? I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you doing? I'm doing great, thank you. It's so great to see you all here today. And how are you? My daughter just died to measles. Oh, that's just great. I'm doing fine myself. Thank you. It's so great to see you all here today. And how are you? My whole family just died. It's also because of measles. What are you gonna do about that? I'm doing great, thank you. I understand. I'm doing great, thank you. But I understand. There's some people hurting. They call it affordability and such. I'm here to tell you I understand. No one's at fault. No one who's out of power is at fault. If you're hurting, I understand. No one's at fault. No one who's out of power. If you are hurting under the affordability crunch, let me just signal I understand. I want you to vote your way out of the affordability crunch by voting for me. I understand. I want you to vote your way out of the affordability crunch through me. I understand. If you are hurting, thank you. I'm doing great too. I understand. If you are hurting, I want you to vote your way out of it by voting for me. I understand. It's not your fault. I understand. You had to have the fourth kid. I understand. That second SUV was a must. I understand. Suburbia is cleaner than the city. I understand all of it. I even understand some of no avail's expectations. I understand that if you work hard, you ought to expect ever more luxury. I understand. That's why I'm doing great. Thank you. It's the American dream. I understand. If you are hurting, why don't you vote your way out of it by voting for me? I understand. If you are hurting, I'm here to help you, so vote for me. I understand. I'm here to flatter you, so vote for me. If you are hurting, I understand. I'm here to flatter you. It's not your fault, so vote for me. I'll use the government to control markets to make the affordability crunch all go away. I understand. I'm here to flatter, so vote for me. It's not your fault. I'm doing great, thank you. And how are you? I'm fine, I guess. But I'm not voting for you, bitch. There's no fixing some things. Say no to excitation. Yeah, say no to luxury. Yeah, say no to politician and say no to luxury. Yeah, I understand diddly squat. I understand diddly squat about the American dream. I understand diddly squat about your putrid American dream. I understand diddly squat about your putrid American dream and reveries. I understand diddly squat about the ravenous nature of the common man. I understand diddly squat about the ravenous nature of common man. I understand diddly squat about the ravenous nature of the common man. I understand diddly squat about the ravenous nature of common man. Yeah, cut my time.
You all seem to know about this fellow Liberty Valance. He's a no-good gun-packing, murdering thief. But the only advice you can give to me is to carry a gun. Well, I'm a lawyer. Ransom Stoddard, attorney at law. And the law is the only...
Welcome to No Avail. Video, I don't know what, I'll figure it out. Approaching mid-March here. It will not air in the March video that I have planned for this. It'll probably air in April, but it's mid-March now, and I just read a story, and it may just be one of the most pathetic things I've read in public life. And before I reveal the story in question, I'm going to discuss the character the Joker very briefly, hopefully. And I'm going to kind of give my synopsis of what the Joker is motivated by. And maybe it's a bog standard analysis. I don't follow these Batman franchise fandoms, Dark Knight. I even fell asleep to the first Dark Knight when I went to go see it in the theaters, the 2008 one. So I'm not going to pretend to be some kind of a gem on the Batman thing. I like the cartoon more than any movie. You know that 90s Batman cartoon? Of course I like the cartoon more because it's a 90s cartoon. And I have the nostalgia for the 90s. I've got it bad, man. It's like rubbing off on the channel, isn't it? Yeah. My 90s nostalgia is like impacting the whole channel. It's causing me to do like typical mind fallacy, but that's okay. That's okay. Before I get into that, your viewership is kind of appreciated. Kind of should point that out in a non-comedy segment, you know? This is a non-comedy segment because I'm doing it old school instead of directing and attacking others. But all jokes aside, your viewership is kind of appreciated, not too much, because the more I get, the more I'll be tempted to get even more and insert myself into the, you know, who's who of screaming voices and increasingly deranged screaming voices on social media. So it's kind of good that I have minimal viewership because I'm not exposed to all the, you know, deranging forces that would derange me further were I one of the participants. I know full well I'm a spectator, even though I commentate. And boy, howdy, do I ever commentate. I'm not a participant when it comes to the big players. And that's good for my mental health and probably everyone's mental health. But despite that, I lose myself during the day because I see one too many things and I'm like, I'd love to just pwn this person, but I can't as a non-participant who doesn't have anything like the kind of viewership one does need to have if one were to turn oneself into a participant instead of a mere spectator. Anyway. And while I'm at it, a proper tribute to Scott Adams. You know, I didn't do it with a coffee segment when I discussed Scott, so a proper tribute to Scott Adams. You know, Scott, we already miss you, kind of. We already miss you. MAGA's already worse without you. As bad as MAGA was when you were at the helm of MAGA, Scott, at least in my view, MAGA's already worse. So cheers, Scott Adams. Sorry you had to die 2 months ago. So, just briefly, on the Joker, and I'll tie it into the story that I just read, which is like, you know, I don't think I've read anything more pathetic. I've read crazier things. I've read more dangerous things that have to do with the public and politics and stuff. But I honestly, at this level of power and of people who are already accomplished, like the fact that they would put up with this surprised even me in this late hour. It has to do with the Trump administration. Believe it or not. Hey, look at that. That's Mary. That's Mary. I broke Mary. I walked into Mary. I think I discussed that already. I walked into Mary and broke her. And then didn't fix her. But anyway. So, the Joker as a character, this may have been covered. I just don't know, because I don't know the Batman fandom things. But, you know, I've read some amount on Batman by the Batman fanatics. And I've never heard this particular synopsis on what it means to be a type of character that the Joker is. See, the Joker wasn't insane. Again, maybe I'm wrong, because the adaptations to the original things made him insane. But, you know, originally, if you pay attention close enough to the Joker's speeches, like, the Joker is not actually insane. He LARPs being an insane guy to signal as, like, kind of ultimate meta signal. And he knows no one's going to get it, but he does it regardless. He's a perfectly sane guy who's angry and disgruntled and who just decided that I'm going to be dangerous, but that's not all I'm going to be. You know, I'm going to be this ruiner of lives, but I'm going to be completely batshit out of my mind, or at least I'm going to make it seem that way as I'm doing it. And I know that everyone who's going to be exposed to the coverage of me as a criminal is going to deduce, based on my, you know, speech acts and other acts, that I am absolutely out of my mind, even though I'm not. And I'm going to do that to signal just how much contempt I have for every last person I've dealt with in this wretched society. This society of serfs, even people who obtain massive amounts of power, are going to conduct themselves like serfs insofar as they are within a hierarchy and then someone above them has even more power. And that someone who is above them demands that they be a certain way. Joker looked at all this and said, this society is beyond contempt, so much so that I'm going to be this dangerous force in life, but I'm going to be absolutely crazy all along the way because I just don't give a shit that I know I'm not insane and I'm going to be made to look insane, and I'm going to be perceived, irreversibly perceived as someone who is insane. And I'm going to mold myself into a kind of psychology, probably over time, that's going to lead me to become the kind of person that doesn't just pretend to not care that they perceive me incorrectly, i.e. insane when I'm not. I'm not just going to pretend to care. I'm going to mold my psyche over time into someone who genuinely doesn't. Because that is genuinely what they deserve. They deserve to have the kind of antagonist who does the thing that's like the hardest thing to do when it comes to just being a being who is like plagued by human nature, aka, you know, concern over how you're perceived. Whether it's by those you respect or by those you don't respect, most people are concerned that they're perceived accurately, even by their enemies, I'm sure, though they would not like to admit it. And Joker, to me, is kind of the one character who's like the standout, where that's just how much contempt he had for this society. Is he did a 180 on human nature, and he succeeded. He genuinely did not care that he wasn't technically crazy, but he conducted himself in such a way where it's like there's no way to assume that he was anything other than crazy if you're actually a character in the Batman universe. So I'm going to load this video with a lot of outside audios where I, you know, kind of in certain moments get carried away. And I just want this to be front-loaded so that everyone understands that that's kind of what I'm doing. I didn't even connect it to what I'm doing until I started thinking analytically about Joker the character. And again, I don't know about the latter day adaptations. I fell asleep in the theaters to that first Dark Knight. That's how bad it was. But based on the fucking 90s cartoon Batman, the Joker wasn't actually crazy. He just LARPed crazy. Because it is an awesome way to signal how much fucking contempt a person with a head on their shoulders should have for every fucking ounce of this society that's plagued by concern and kind of a ladder climbing where the person at the top of the ladder is almost invariably the motherfucking naked emperor. And I'm sure there have been other characters who have done more or less the same thing and announced it in as many words. But this is my front loading. You know, outside I kind of yell and I kind of laugh maniacally and I get into my zones, and that's what I'm doing. I'm the anti-Sam Harris. Sam Harris is petrified, and that's why he's as wooden as he is and as concerned to look responsible and, you know, centrist-like responsible and just these formulaic, repetitive, oh, I understand. Hey, MAGA, I understand all the pathologies of the left. And hey, the left, I understand all the pathologies of the right. And, you know, there's a sweet spot in here. And as a point, that's not wrong. But Sam always delivers it in this wooden way where it's like the takeaway, it's not just the substance, but it's the style. Through his demeanor and his indoor voice, he signals stylistically that he's desperate to be taken seriously by a wider and wider and wider group of people because he wants to be influential politically, because he wants to get the masses to vote better politically, because he's a petrified quasi-Buddhist, because he's a family man, and he's got young daughters, or maybe not so young daughters these days. And Lord knows what's going to happen to them, you know, if he can't be around to protect them and, you know, protect him as a father. Best way to protect your daughter, Sam, is to leave the United States. You fucking moron. Sorry, I'm very rough. I know guys like Sam are, you know, the few good people left, but they're only good on the substance. They're not good stylistically because they're willing to mold themselves as per the demands of Philistinism. I've had it up to here with this Philistinism, where intellectuals bend themselves, especially due to democratic culture. They twist themselves to meeting its demands without even realizing they're doing so. They forget somewhere along the way that that's what they're doing. And I've had it up to fucking here with it. Because I just read a fucking story that Trump bought many of his cabinet members, his administration, the higher-ups who are the most servile to him. He bought them all shoes. And the shoes are some kind of special shoes, but the problem is, for many of them, including little Marco, they don't fit. The shoes don't fit, and they still wear the shoes because they'll do just about anything to not cross the boss and to not run afoul of what they perceive as like the agenda right now. There's no other way to have an agenda unless it's the MAGA/MIGA agenda. And at what point do you go, it's like, fuck all of it. Fuck all of it. I'm so fucking sick of just the extent to which Philistinism has taken root in America, to the point where all these intellectuals and people who try to do good, including the activists, don't see the extent to which they bend themselves, whether to meet the bar, the Philistinistic bar, if that even is a word, Philistinistic bar in blue America or in red America. It's a somewhat different bar. So yeah, I should have turned on the lights. Yeah, I sometimes settle on the lappy lights, but let's see if I can, because then the lappy turns off and I just get distracted by the fact that I see that the lappy lights have turned off. So am I done? I think I'm done. This video is going to have a lot of crap in the way of outdoorsy rants, and this is just like, I haven't lost my mind. I can be every bit as responsible as I was once upon a time when I wore my, you know, business casual shirts and YouTube videos for a while, when I was in my mid-20s, and when I should have known better than to try to mold myself into some kind of non-emotional, phlegmatic figure who is just here to report the facts, and look how undisturbed I am by any of the facts, and I'm like the unbiased guy because I wear like I dress like business casual and shit, and I don't rant maniacally like the Joker does. Like, no. It's not just that the schooling did a number on me. No, it was well into my fucking mid-20s that this crap had a firm grip on my psyche. And I'm making up for lost time now. So, yeah, I just wanted to explain that. And, you know, hopefully you all understand that that's what's necessary right now. It really does matter that politicians, though they swear more occasionally now and they may even insult their opponents more honestly than they were ready to decades ago, that's progress. But the fact that they're still kind of, you know, look, I'm wearing a suit and tie again, to the point where you can't even picture me without a suit and a tie, that creates a subliminal respectability effect. And it probably convinces a lot of people that the system is salvageable after all. That probably is the difference maker. You gotta have an eagle eye on these stylistic little cues. As many of you as you think you may be cynical, you're not fucking cynical enough. You know when I'll realize that the masses have become cynical enough is when politicians stop dressing fancy. But that will never happen. 14 and a half minutes. Way to go. This video is going to be even longer now, but that's okay. We can now say goodbye to the ABCs of prudence. Listen.
The problem is teens and young adults. From ages 15 to 19, the fertility rate is down 7%, and it's down 70% over the last 2 decades. People are not to have babies, to wait till they're in a more stable life situation, till they're more financially secure.
It feels like the world's gone backwards. Well, it has. It has. And
a lot of people think that traders are not really fully pricing in. I guess what they're pricing in is they think that before we reach the catastrophe state, some kind of deal will be struck that will somehow rescue everybody from this cliff that we're all headed towards. You know, I guess traders have as much knowledge in this as anybody, but certainly there's lots of experts who say the market is not fully pricing in the risk of this, and there is a real chance that we head for, you know, just catastrophically high oil prices and the kinds of shocks to the economy worldwide that would entail. There'd be winners and losers in that. Canada would be a bit of both. In the short term, we've seen that in the Fed's economic statement that you get a short-term boost to revenues. Obviously, the oil-producing sections of the country get a boost, but there's huge knock-on effects for the rest of the economy as well.
Yeah, I agree. So if we feel that this is a cul-de-sac, as you put it, that the president, and unfortunately, literally, these ships are in a cul-de-sac, which is the kind of Gulf of Oman. Kuwait supposedly exported absolutely zero oil over the last 30 days. So the shut-in is real, and it's growing. If we want to look for off-ramps here,
MAGA wants to say it's over.
National pressure. We have Trump's meeting coming up with Xi in a matter of 10 days or so.
Repetition wins the race. It's not redistricting, it's racism. Can't it be both? See, I clowned on it in a static segment earlier in this video, but can't it be both? You know, I said any ism is propagandistic, including racism. Yeah, I'm sure there's some people who are doing it because they get a bonus kick out of the fact that, yeah, blacks and others who are non-white are impacted disproportionately by all the redistricting in all these red states, and you know, Dems are going to have to fight back with their own redistricting, with their own gerrymandering. It's very much non-racist, unlike the racist gerrymandering of the GOP. But the reason I'm going to say that racism is at best a distant second in the whole plot is because, think about it. You know, if blacks voted red more than they vote blue, are you saying they'd still self-sabotage the Republicans? That they're so racist, they self-sabotage themselves at the ballot box just to disenfranchise the blacks, supposing the blacks voted in much higher droves? Or even if it was just 50-50, you know, it was unpredictable. The next black person, whether they'd vote red or blue. And there's people who are saying that the GOP is so racist that they'd even disenfranchise themselves, or at least not win elections because of disenfranchising the blacks and other non-whites. And so I don't buy it, you know. At best, it's like a bonus. I don't think they're doing it because of the racism. Because then you'd think that, you know, it can come back and bite them on the ass when it comes to their own Uncle Toms and such, you know. I wonder if Glenn Lowry is still for the redistricting. Yeah, Glenn Lowry's like a big time simp for the old gerrymandering. Anyway, here's a fun scene that, in one sentence.
You don't come from south of the pickle wire, valet. You got no vote here.
I live where I hang my hat.
I don't know. I've been under the impression there are more votes south of the picket wire than north.
That's right. But votes won't stand up against guns.
Here's the framing for later. This may tie into the whole, should man have the will to power or not? Should he be more amiable than that and fixate on peace instead of getting what's his, you know, if he just applies himself to the maximum within law or without law? I have a framing that's kind of a political framing that touches on the question reserved for practical living. You know, should man have the will to power? The framing is political because I'm going to say politics as big sophism. We all know about the bigs, big business, big pharma, you know, big scholastic schemes. We know about all that, but really, like, the totality of politics can kind of be summed up, at least until about 5 minutes ago, per human minutes. You know, it's kind of been big sophism. That's how you advance. That's how you do good politics. You flatter the credulous, and then you do really good sophism, you know, like business does. That's why we say big business. It's because they have a lot of sophists who do their bidding. You know, if they can afford to, why not? As does Big Pharma, as do any of these, you know, even things that have their legitimate benefits. You know, they have enough sophists to oversell the benefits and to undersell the harms, such that we dub the thing, you know, take your pick, big tobacco, right? And so the question is, can liberalism escape the clutches of, you know, politics as big sophism? Can liberal-minded people improve politics to the point where, you know, it's not as reliant on these, you know, never-ending sophistic techniques and arguments and taking advantage of the credulous majorities? And make no mistake, man, the majorities are always credulous. I still can't believe the shoe thing, man. Oh, I gotta do that later because I got so much to do before, but man, the shoe thing is happening. They're all wearing them. They're too big for little Marco, and Marco won't put them down. It's like they're convinced by their own sophistry. That's how bad it is in politics, you know, to implement their agenda, what they think is the only tolerable agenda. Any other agenda, even your own individualistic solo agenda, no, don't focus on that. Be an ant who wears shoes that are too big for him because your big sophism has brainwashed even you, little Marco, from the sounds of it. And so I guess I want to frame like the challenge to politics as like the liberals come along, liberal-minded people, maybe not even by way of ideology, but just temperament. You know, people who are willing to let enough things slide as long as those things don't impact them or some constituency they care about. And the moment it impacts them and the constituency they care about, they become a lot less freewheeling. But you know, even liberals have their biases. Lord knows they know it. They know about the meta stuff. You know, and so why might not the fundamental divide in politics be between cynics and liberals? Not like nihilists or any of that. They're just cynics who think that like liberals will fail.
they will fail to take enough big out of the big sophism that has hitherto ruled politics. You know, to do good politics is to be a good sophist, knowing exactly what the boundaries are, exactly what you can get away with, what you can't, who you're appealing to, and who's to be written off as a potential new member of the constituency. You know, all that and more. And then liberals are like, yeah, okay, there'll be some of that always, but ideas as such can play a bigger role, and it's dogmatic to say that they can't in advance. Right? I mean, realistically, how long has the liberal political philosophy been in existence? You know, it's just been these few centuries. And I think had it not been for the, you know, pandering to Philistines through these growth schemes like the economy and stuff, you know, liberalism oddly would have been more successful. Liberalism's primary fault is not even the liberal philosophy liberalism. No, it's this movement liberalism stuff where they fixate on growing the pie, you know, and compromising all sorts of moral principles for doing it. You know, because Jim wants more luxury. They want to pander to Jim because Jim's the majority often. You know, so it's like too much concern on this technocratic stuff, like, you know, the economists. They're technocrats of sorts, as skilled mathematician persons who apply their mathematical know-how to commerce. And so, like, liberals were like dick riding all that stuff, but I don't see why they have to, right? Liberals just have to dick ride, like, individual rights, not like the schemes for pleasing the Philistines, like the economy. I really don't give a shit about what goes on in the economy, even if food prices soar. Yeah, it'll suck, but you know what? I don't want it occupying most of the discussion on, you know, public affairs. Yeah, talk about the economy like 25% of the time at most, even if the economy is really bad, because there's so many other fascinating things to discuss on this planet. But see, it all is weighed down by the demands of Philistinism. You know, so it's inevitable that it leads to technocracy, which then leads to big sophism and, you know, I don't know what's worse. The kind of bureaucracy I work for, or Silicon Valley and everything that's coming out of it. So the whole public-private, like, divide is, it's becoming more moot. No, it's the Philistine versus anti-Philistine divide. Liberals need to say it, small L liberals. Yeah, I think the masses have to be shamed into compliance with high-minded ends. The masses have to be shamed. We've tried everything else. Hasn't worked. It's just I can't be the only one who says it. So my answer is yes, I'm not a cynic who thinks that it's impossible to get the big out of big sophism when it comes to politics. I think it's very much possible. It's just people need to have courage. People who have brains, like non-Philistines, need to understand that it's like you can be jaded and you cannot be naive, and at the same time you shouldn't dogmatically rule out in advance that we can have a increasingly liberal body politic where ideas predominate. They'll never be the whole story, but they can have a bigger role. And it's not like you even have to think it's especially likely. You don't have to agonize over the task of assigning some probability, like over 50% probability. I don't think it's over 50% that there will be, you know, less big sophism in politics sometime in the future. You know, I just don't think it's anywhere near zero. It's foolish to jump the gun on that and just rule it out, essentially by fiat, just to flex how cynical you are about human nature. But, you know, I just know that ideas can be fun. And, like, having principles, apart from the fact that, yeah, you know, genuine integrity comes along for the ride, but it's also fun to think about all these things and to care about them for their own ends. So there's like a hedonic element. as there is to integrity. You feel better when you understand that you have integrity. And when you lack it, you probably feel worse unless you're like a psychopath. So it explains enough, right? So it's like most people aren't psychopaths, so they just need to be trained into understanding. Like there's also these hedonic upsides to caring about ideas, having consistent principles or consistent enough. And then above all, just knowing that you have integrity. There's nothing anyone can say they can disabuse you of that, given that you've recorded like your conduct since 2008 in video form on and off. It's like, yeah, whatever else I may be wrong about, I know I have integrity and I strive to be consistent and to care about all persons individually when it comes to legal protection. I do. Just as criminals refuse that right by being criminals and violent criminals especially and gangbangers, so too can like insurrectionists and stuff and people who attend insurrections, J6 and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't have to care about their rights as much. They've proven themselves just completely unwilling to even begin to be potty trained. But yeah, if you're potty trained and you hate overthrows of duly elected leaders because like the minority is super ass sore about it, it's like, yeah, I'll care about your rights unconditionally. But yeah, it's, feels good to have integrity and all these other things, and so that's why I think there's a good enough chance, maybe not 50% and above, but there's a decent enough chance such that like cynicism about politics and just the claim by fiat that it's forever going to be big sophism from A to Z, that jumps the gun. So I'm just not jumping the gun. So I'm with the liberals on this one. We should try, to some extent, to make arguments to change politics and improve politics. You don't have to do it in the voting booth. Lord knows I don't.
Man, Ezra has Fareed Zakaria on so often. Or should I say the New York Times tells Ezra to have Fareed back after he's had him back, and then he's got to have him back again. Is it because Fareed's analysis is second to none that either Ezra is sold on Fareed as like a very frequent guest, or Ezra's employer, the New York Times, are sold on Fareed like as the go-to guy? Just like in the last, 2 years, it's like the 5th time he's had him on. And so is Fareed that good? Or is it the fact that you can't picture Fareed having an attitude and insulting his enemies or whatever, his opponents? Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's not so much that Fareed is just that insightful. It's that you can't picture Fareed as anything other than like a polite guy, a munchkin. And so the New York Times likes that. And Ezra, maybe himself, maybe Ezra's not strong-armed into it. Maybe just Ezra as non-angry man. Maybe that's all Ezra can muster. But maybe we should do a bit. Yeah, let's do a bit. I don't have time to do a bit. Oh, okay, maybe that's for the best. Yeah, for some reason, after a while, Apple Podcasts decided that I had to sign up. But that just means sharing my email with more things that it's like, no, it's not worth it, And plus it's better because then I'm not going to play them and like do a half-an-hour segment making fun of them. Oh, the predatory hegemon. Yeah, they just plug a bunch of books too. Yeah, that's the other thing. You guys have just read yourself silly. You guys have like other people's voices in your heads more so than like your own voices. Yeah, see, I can use voices like progressives. Progressives like think like you're a voice more so than a person. Oh, voices of all stripes. It's like, no, just people. But, in this sense, like, yeah, when you like read so much, like at the end of every fucking podcast, you ask your guest to give like 3 book recommendations. It's like, yeah, I fucking pegged you guys. You guys are why these reactionaries run roughshod on like the Democrats politically.
because you guys are munchkins and you think that like insight means just like having a good attitude and never like insulting your opponents. That's why you guys get along with each other so well too. You feel comfortable. Like no one's gonna hurl insults. And I'm just here to say that's like a meta mistake. I'm not even doing a comedy segment. I'm serious about this shit. The meta mistake, certainly in America, is thinking that like being so, you know, let's say magnanimous to the point where like we can't even picture him or Fareed just doling out insults to all these fucking morons. For the most part, these reactionaries. That's the fucking problem. It's that he can feel so comfortable platforming him for the umpteenth time. And, you know, whatever pushback is received, it's because, like, you know, they're too establishment or something. But that's not the problem. You know, it's the problem of their demeanor, not their substantive views. You know, their substantive views aren't that bad, actually. It's better than the progs. You know, yeah, Fareed's not for open borders. Fareed's not that stupid. You know, but yeah, I'm serious now. I can't, like, even if I'm, like, having a nightmare and there's, like, some old Fareed, like, evil Fareed Zakaria that shows up in my nightmare, like, he still won't insult anyone, like, ever. And he won't either. The likelihood of them doling out, like, insults, you know, like the basement dweller does, like, it's as unimaginable as, like, Timothy Snyder making jokes. That's how unimaginable it is. And that's the problem with this whole, you know, atmosphere that we're in. We're in the Attitude Era, and, like, a lot of the really well-known, you know, big platform types, that they still think they're playing, like, yesterday's media game. But I think in Ezra's case, it's just the paycheck's just that cushy. Yeah, Ezra, you left your Vox comrades behind, didn't you, Ezra? Yeah, Ezra left his Vox crew behind because he's an American who likes to dream. he likes to dream big and make it big.
I'm staying, and I'm not buying a gun either.
Oh, good luck, Pilgrim.
Soak in the sun.
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.
That is the train. It will go away momentarily. And I don't need to be as loud, but I want to be loud. You know, it's unfair what my fellow Canadians are going through. They're far more perturbed than me, the average Canadian. Although you wouldn't know it, talking to the folks at my workplace, nope, they're not perturbed. In the slightest, it seems. They're every bit as trifling. But according to the data, and at least a handful of the neighbors, they're very perturbed. I am at most irritated, agitated, frustrated, angry. But the anger feels good. As I will go on to explain, you know, folly can sometimes feel good. That's what the next, heaven help me, 47 minutes are about in a way. Folly can feel good. In the case of anger primarily, but I'll get to the other stuff. But you know, it's unfair what my fellow Canadians have to go through. It's not their fault. I'm not from here originally. I'm from a land far away. The country's no longer in existence, in fact. But I first knew that at least this city was class when I was about 15 years old. So I'd been here for about 5 years, and I was, I think, mature enough to analyze places. And I first reckoned, this city is class back in 2001 when the Canucks, they made it to the playoffs for the first time in, I don't know how many years, like 5-6 years, something like that. Yeah, maybe 4. But, they hadn't been in the playoffs. They'd been a sucky team. And here they are in 2001, and they're playing a hated divisional rival, the Colorado Avalanche. And in 4 very spirited hockey games, competitive, as I recall, but the latter 2 were in GM Place, now renamed Rogers Arena. I like the old name better. But, the Canucks get swept in 4 games, 4-0. And the people, the enthusiasts of the team, and you got to think the enthusiasts of the city, therefore, they get up and give a standing ovation to the game and to their team. Even though it was the first round and their team got swept by a divisional rival. Like, Canucks were 8th place and Avalanche were 1st, so they played the Avalanche. And I'm watching this. This is my first playoffs that I'm watching the NHL for. I hadn't watched before. It was only by this point that I was beginning to reconcile myself to the fact that now hockey was going to be my, ad hoc favorite sport. Because I wasn't mediocre at it the way I was starting to be mediocre at basketball. Not because I got outplayed or outskilled. No, because they were starting to swing further. They simply swung further. Whether it's, these gladiator wars, they can win not by being more skilled, but by just turning up one day and being like 6'4". And so they simply swung further. And so I begin to reconcile myself to the fact, okay, hockey's my favorite thing, because hockey I'm more than merely mediocre at. I am exceptional. And so I'm going to watch the game too. And so I watch the NHL, and it's the 0-1 playoffs, and the Canucks get swept. And the enthusiasts of the team are such class, they get up and give a heartfelt standing O. And I'm like, yeah, this is a great place. And I don't know what's happened to that spirit. I think I do know, but I'm afraid to say it. What's happened to the spirit of, being a Vancouverite, to that, salt of the earth enthusiasm. It's not just that I was young and naive. There was a salt of the earth enthusiasm to this city. And the best example of it, you can look it up on YouTube, is what happened at the end of Game 4 when the Canucks got swept by a superior team. Their fans were still grateful for the experience. It was a humble, enthusiastic, spirited, non-reserved. It seemed like they were less of a reserved people. I think in part the immigration laws, where you want the best of the best, the credentialed, the people who live for careerist criteria. Do you understand that's what your skilled migrants are? It's people who turn themselves up, around, any which way, twist themselves, bend themselves, pervert themselves, hide themselves, go all topsy-turvy to match the careerist criteria. And you do that for a number of decades, and yeah, you're going to have a dull, reserved chunk of the populace rub off on the other native populace, which will in turn make them more, reserved and eager to compete for the careerist, stakes. It's not just capitalism. It's we live in a society where too many people are willing to bend to meet the demands of these careerist stakes. Because they just don't know how to stop spending on stupid luxuries, superfluous crap. You got to listen to Choran on this, the best polemic ever against civilization. It's his 1964 work, The Fall into Time, and he has a chapter, an essay on the civilized man, a portrait. And it's like, I start to think myself, it's like, do I just think shelter is necessary because I've been duped from day one? You know, it gets you thinking. It's like you can't see how shelter might actually just be another want as opposed to a need, because people made off without it, right? A lot of people, there were people, you know, for hundreds of thousands of years, they were kind of people, and they made off without shelter, strictly speaking. You know, and so it's like, even I don't really reduce my needs or wants to the extent that I can, perhaps. It's just, I'm too far away from the equator, so it's harder. But it's like, yeah, all these people who compete for the sheet so they can make the bag, especially if they're men who are thirsty, not just for the bag, but for the hoe, who will get with them if they bring home the bag. You stupid men. You drag the rest of us down. You're partly to blame for the ambition. God, because if you can't get it naturally, you want to get it through ambition. You know, ambition, either through Epstein, either through fucking Epstein on the Lolita Island when you want the particularly young pussy, or if you're not that perverted and fucked up sexually, you know, the underage pussy, you're still fucked up and perverted in a sense if you're eager to have ambition so you can bring home the bag, so you can get the, you know, elder pussy that way. Some of the elder pussy, yeah, elder pussy. You know, even Rebecca Watson territory. Rebecca Watson and those other scarecrows, skeptics. I met a couple of skeptics. They were cool, but whatever. I was naive, so maybe they weren't cool. I was just naive. Yeah. Pretty sure I heard him saying something flattering about slut walks. It's like, if you're a man and you want to further empower the slut walk, it's like you're hoisted by your own trick, not your own petard. I mean, you're hoisted by your own trick. Anyway, yeah. So, you know, the mass immigration into Canada is to blame for the fact that, you know, there's a lot more reserved people here now than there were when I was like a kid in 01. And just kind of now thinking back about and thinking, why did that enthusiasm go away? And it went away because the society turned ever more careerist and thereby competitive. And so, you know, we'll probably never see anything like that enthusiasm here ever again unless we turn far less careerist. But that's hard to do now because so many Canadians are frightened. And the way to make them less frightened is to have a more powerful country. You can't have a more powerful country, primarily militarily speaking here, without having a far more powerful economy, a economy that fixates on growth. Growth is the engine of power. In neoliberal times, all nations bite the bullet to some extent. So at least all of these nations that are, you know, industrious and post-industrious, they all bite the bullet. Oh, I'm Chinese. I don't bite the bullet because I'm communist. No, motherfucker, you bite the bullet. Y'all just careerists too. Oh, God. The Chinese are like doubly careerist. That's why they're going to win and own the century. Don't let anyone overcomplicate this story. The Chinese are going to win and own the century because they got enough of their population duped enough to think that, like, by being careerist, you're being virtuous, qua Confucius. Confucius is another scheme for hard work, in case you didn't know. And them Chinese are going to win the century simply by way of ever more drive and haste and careerist stakes being, you know, sought after. And those poor Chinese children. That's another thing from my youth when I came here. That was the biggest culture shock, is meeting, you know, Chinese and Japanese and Cantonese kid after kid and friend after friend who just told me how much more difficult schooling was over there. It was well into effect back then. Their children are enslaved to the grades, to the report card, like the parents are enslaved to their income and their, oh, I'm going to make my way through life by having the most prestigious job possible. Yeah, so that's what Canada has to compete with. And these fucking separatists next door, whatever, 20-30% of the population that wants to separate and annex Alberta from Canada. You can't do that, motherfuckers. It was the Canadian Parliament that created Alberta. It is only the Canadian Parliament that can dissolve Alberta. Your fraudster and his loyalists and toadies can't help you do that. You motherfucking assholes. Ingrates. But yeah, you know, Canada's doomed. Canada's doomed and reserved, because the only way to be less doomed is to become more powerful on the global stage by continuing to import all these credentialed folk and then having them rub off on the local native folk. And goodbye, fun society. That's something Carney will never tell you, but in a word, goodbye fun, goodbye enthusiasm. We have to focus on becoming more powerful on the global stage. And that's not a fun task, especially not for those of us who have an excess of imagination and learn to edit way later in life than they should have. That's why I'm forestalled in all the videos. I want to put the images, all these images that my imagination comes up with ahead of time, and then like I find the image 9 times out of 10 that's perfect, and the 10th time it's like almost perfect. The images that I want to find for every single fucking, you know, neg I dish out to the world as I'm doing these audios. But anyway, here's another less angry audio at first, at least.
I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, it's it.
I tiptoed around the dangerous part by making it all about the credentialism and such. No, the dangerous part is, you know, there's less of a cohesive, common interest style enthusiasm here, I believe, across the Lower Mainland. But particularly notable across Vancouver. There's less of that just because even without those, whatever, now the natives have to play hardball by being themselves these credentialist pleasing individuals. There's that, but then also there's just a lot more different types of people with different types of interests packed, you know, into a compact space. So yeah, it just kind of sucks that you can't recognize it, discuss it, and at the same time earnestly condemn all bigotry, and actually have people convinced that you are earnestly condemning bigotry. No, you're pretending to be condemning bigotry. If you simply notice that diversity of interests leads to a diversity of paths. And then you have different people with ever more different paths doing different things. No, I guess it's kind of cool insofar as maybe you have more people individuating that way, right? But I don't know if it makes for the best place in the world to be if you like get invaded by an outgroup. I think you're just gonna have a lot of people flee when you're as multi-culty as, like, yeah, downtown Vancouver and elsewhere across the Lower Mainland. You know, I don't think it's good in and of itself to be rooted. I think that's a naive thing that naive people believe. Just like people tend to believe that, you know, differences, cultural differences are greater across, let's say, these European countries than they are across all the urban and rural spaces. No, the bigger cultural shock will almost always be the urban countryside, urban rustic culture shock within a country, if all you've ever known is the city, say, and then you travel, and then there's like, they live even without indoor plumbing sometimes. That's far greater of a culture shock than this kind of cross-national culture shock. No, that's just linguistic. But yeah, the linguistic factor is such a huge factor. I have all these irreverent comedy segments about just kind of being bothered by ever more, you know, heavy Indian accents, but it's like from 2024, and it's like, God, I was so insensitive. And because now ICE is even targeting on the grounds of, brown and such accents, it's like I'm hesitant to upload those segments. But anyway, onward. Yeah, just to note, it's just diversity is not going to get you a place where the outgroups are going to be very hesitant to fuck with, because they see the disorganization. They see it from a mile away. The lack of militias across the Lower Mainland and such. Yeah, Lower Mainland needs its own militias. I gotta start a petition at work. Yeah, come join the No Avail militia and teach me how to use them.
It just feels like the world's gone backwards.
Well, it has. It has. And
these are things that I do not wish to do in earnest. But it's just the world that I live in. I must acquire arms, and I'm nothing like ready, just as a man. I must acquire arms. And I'm nothing like ready. But I see how Derek is. And I see how Yank is. And I won't cede territory. I must acquire arms.
You pick it up.
What's the matter? Everybody in this country killed crazy? Here! Oh my God! That's how...
Damn, I just got it working. Again?
The poor need funds to enable them to learn, not to get certified for the treatment of their alleged disproportionate deficiencies. All this is true in poor nations as well as in rich nations.
Look at them all through the darkness I am bringing. They're not sad at all. They're actually singing.
School tends to break up learning into subject matters, to build into the pupil a curriculum made of these prefabricated blocks, and to gauge the result on an international scale. People who submit to the standard of others for the measure of their own personal growth soon apply the same ruler to themselves. They no longer have to be put in their place, but put themselves into their assigned slots, squeeze themselves into the niche which they have been taught to seek, and, in the very process, put their fellows into their places too, until everybody and everything fits. People who have been schooled down to size let unmeasured experience slip out of their hands. To them, what cannot be measured becomes secondary, threatening. They do not have to be robbed of their creativity. Under instruction, they have unlearned to do their thing, or to be themselves, to value only what has been made or could be made. Once people have the idea schooled into them that values can be produced and measured, they tend to accept all kinds of rankings. There is a scale for the development of nations, another for the intelligence of babies, and even progress toward peace can be calculated according to a body count. In a schooled world, the road to happiness is paved with a consumer's index. The myth of packaging values. School sells a curriculum, a bundle of goods made according to the same process and having the same structure as other merchandise. Curriculum production for most schools begins with allegedly scientific research on whose basis educational engineers predict future demand and tools for the assembly line within the limits set by budgets and taboos.
Yeah, for once a short one, about a minute, and then I'm done, I swear. So the schooling criteria, the curricula, they call it, is pretty much what schooling criteria means. If you define curricula right, man, that Ivan Illich guy nails it like no one else in the book, Deschooling Society. But this schooling criteria, a la curricula, let's say, that starts to dominate your life, I guess grade 1, maybe kindergarten in the West, but, with each new grade, the more of a hold it takes of your life and what it presents as knowledge and essential knowledge for you. That's the curricula. They can't weasel out of these types of definitions of what it is they want to get you to fixate on specific types of knowledge, and they want to convince you there's something non-arbitrary about the fact that it's this committee that chooses, and not all these people on the ground who actually know each other. The typical neighborhood has no say in specifically what's going to be taught to their kids or to just kids. It's not even about the fact that it's their kids. It's just the fact that it's kids, right? And more often than not, the kids don't get to decide, but even the adults the kids might pick, it's like, okay, that adult seems to get me better than anyone else. Let that specific adult pick my curricula. What's gonna dominate increasingly more and more of my life as I age, from freaking childhood into adolescence, and then for those stupid enough, into adulthood. The adult education business model that subsists on regulated culture anxiety. It works on people. How many people in your life have you known who've truly questioned the curricula? It's like, why this and not something else? It's as arbitrary as if it were me who was going to, in order to maximally advantage myself, set criteria like, okay, one of the most important subjects in schools is to cover Porcupine Tree or Steven Wilson solo songs. And not so much even cover them, but inject lyrics into them. And the better you do it, the better your grade is in the sing to Porcupine Tree class. Yeah, the vocal grade. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say it. You might believe a lot of this comes down to just subjective tastes. I don't think so. I think voice quality is about as firm. If you get actually people to rate voices, it's going to be about as predictable as any other kind of metric. Like you rate the person who, fixes your computer. It's like if your computer's working and the other guy comes and fails, you're going to uprate the one who actually got your computer to work. And you're going to downrate the asshole who just wasted your time and try to take your money. Yeah, computer fixer Yelp. That's going to be predictable. If you do the job right, you're going to get the upvote. If you fail to do the job, you're going to get the downvote. Even the Volk can get that one, right? And I think something like that holds for voice quality, specifically with men. Yeah, the male voice hierarchy. To evolve, to survive, man had to be menacing. And so man had to learn to shout right. And that's probably how man learned to sing. So I think this voice aspect is about as objective in and of itself. Right? Now, whether that should have any role in what the typical kid goes on to learn, if the kid picks me as one of the people who sets his curricula, maybe that's the extent to which my reach goes. So I got these disappointing half-brothers who are 18, neither of whom, when I tell them stuff like this, responds by saying, we should have totally picked you and agitated for this in our school. We should have picked you, our older, based, 30-something-year-old brother. I'm 40 now, but they're done with high school now. But it's they never said that. I said the based thing. Like, I should set standards, and I can maybe even pick out precisely what I see in you, where you already have an edge at. You're already just naturally, you have a natural advantage at. Like, you know, each of them has their sport. Not so much the one who's hooked on meth now. He's done with sports. You know, but the other one does drugs too, but he's not as bad, so he still has a sport. Water polo. So it's like, yeah, just make water polo a bigger deal in the gym. Because this kid knows me. I'm this kid's older half-brother. And this is what I say this kid deserves for his education. Maximize, among the skills of his that you maximize his, you know, water polo capacity to the point where he might even join the pro leagues. Don't only do that if he gets like really good grades and then you send him to a scholarship. Do that on arrival. But see, like, you only get the scholarship if you're scholastically slavish enough. I think that's how it works still. That's how it used to work. Maybe now the athletes just get by being athletes. So in the case of basketball, not necessarily better, but simply being able to swing further. And I guess in the case of other things, you know, sword fighting. Sword fights are sizist. Indeed they are. Yeah, but some sports are less sizist and brute force oriented than others. But, you know, I was like pretty decent. Hockey. But neither of them are decent in hockey. But anyway, you know, it's like, if I were to set educational criteria and I were a kid, like, yeah, I would just go to bat for myself. I would just go into business for myself, to use the wrestling parlance for this sort of stuff. You know, when a guy just decides to dominate another guy in the ring because he's pissed off and he's more roided out, like, that smaller guy has to take it insofar as the bigger guy is also a vet. So if a vet wants to go against the predetermined way the match unfolds, like, the vet can do that. Like, that often happens in wrestling. And a little guy who's like typically a newbie just has to take it. And even the ref rolls with it. Like, the Acolytes often did that. Farouk and Bradshaw, it's like they just went into business for themselves and telling themselves it was about like teaching these young guys, you know, the way of the business, and they gotta pay their dues. Like, those two guys, like Farouk and Bradshaw, like they legit beat the shit out of Matt and Jeff Hardy numerous times. And even Edge and Christian, I think, very early on. And like, everyone's like grateful to be in the business. But yeah, to go back to the things, like, that's what it means to go into business for yourself. So because I was so wrong educationally, and I was so made to fixate on criteria that 99 times out of 100, you know, the curricula, that wasn't going to have anything to do with my life. Even with my skills and my necessity building habits, you know, survival habits. And yet it was rammed down my throat 11 some odd years a la schooling. So fuck your schooling, you know. There needs to be more of a decentralist approach to this. You know, if a kid is ready to start schooling, so in my view, if a kid is like 8 or 9 and now he's ready to start schooling, he or she decides, and he or she picks a handful of adults who know the kid well enough, who are like, you know, law-abiding adults. They don't have to be normies. They don't have to hold conventional views. They just have to be peaceful and decent and law-abiding. Or maybe revolutionaries, given the times. It is. What is it today? Today is February 17th, 2026. And this was supposed to be 1 minute. But I'm very angry about schooling. Having discovered Ivan Illich's 1971 book, Deschooling Society, having discovered that some week ago or so, I'm like 2/3 into it, and like, this man has found yet more reasons why I'm vindicated in my contempt, in my hatred for what has been done to me by these faceless committee members. So I can't even exact revenge on anyone. I'm this vengeful man. I'm this increasingly vengeful man. I aim to wound people psychologically, you know, but none of the enemies are listening. And I don't even think the people who listen are allies, right? given the lack of support, even these few people that listen to me aren't allies. But whatever, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. It's the mark of the G, right? I aim to wound people, because they're just that reckless and careless, and have been before I was born, which means I was born into a utterly irrational society. Like the fact that the world is utterly irrational might just be salvageable if you're born into a decent, rational society that actually does what's best for you, because it doesn't have all these other issues to contend with, like the paranoia of nations, and the great wars of all ages. It's not even necessarily malice. It's just the inability of all these nations to get along, or at least to trust each other enough so they can stand down their fucking standing armies. And that's step one to deschooling society, if you understand how this cookie crumbles, how this sausage is made. My anger is full on justified. I am awash in vindication. As I'm concluding this book, Deschooling Society by Ivan Illich from the early 70s. This man observed this 20 years before this book came out. This book was a culmination of much research, and he was ignored by everyone. And so all these public intellectuals that know how to use their fucking indoor voices, who are even upset with the elites, there's a lot of public intellectuals and other kinds of, activists and blue sky posters who want to do more for their communities, but you're all just too fucking naive, or you're all too fucking corrupt to understand that Ivan Illich was right. You're either too ignorant to have dug him up, or even conceived of all these thoughts yourselves, or you're too fucking self-serving and corrupt to act on it. Because maybe you're a teacher. Yeah, all teacher, every single fucking last one of them is either hopelessly and unbearably naive as a person to participate in this, all this mishandling of all this youth and children as early as 5 even, all this mishandling of their time. You teachers, you mishandle children's crucial developmental time, and you think you're doing them favors. Because these faceless hacks are on the committees who determine what's going to be taught. Most of what you teach is irrelevant to their future goals and their ultimate ends. And you don't even let them figure it out. You mess with their self-esteem. I may have been in denial about this once, but I'm no longer in denial. But yeah, the report cards, they messed with my intellectual self-esteem, which was probably the biggest sin. And they concealed it all by putting the sun, having the sun have a smiley face next to the book, and having the trees have a smiling face next to the fountain. It's let's pack nature into the walls of our school. Let's pack nature and beautiful art reflecting the natural world. Let's pack that on the school walls so that we can actually get the kids to further buy in to the notion that this is a friendly space that's here to help them. Yeah, how did Choran put it? The civilized man, as he goes after the, illiterate peoples of the world, in order to help them. Oh, that global index, faceless hack, committee-based global index development and economic criteria for what's considered. Yeah, Ivan Illich goes into this as well. That same parochial criteria that determines development and underdevelopment is the same fucking criteria, the same model for how they go about mishandling the criteria of what children have to fixate on by law in schools for some 12 odd years, which I was lucky enough to only do for 11 odd years. We'll get into that. This was supposed to be a minute. Yeah, it's like I said, I am awash in vindication, and I have to keep ranting about it. That book showed me that even I hadn't conceived of plenty of reasons against schooling. not supposed to have empathy or solidarity with these, elite decrying intellectuals, pundits, do-gooders, usually progressives, but even a lot of liberals? No. If you guys can't get this, you guys are unsalvageable as thinkers. So often they trot out education, and that America has been failed by its failed education system, by which they just mean schooling. And we got to spend more money on it. Like, Illich just goes into all these reasons as to why throwing more money at it just further sustains and strengthens the schooling model. It is the schooling model that fails a lot of these kids. The roots of the issue are nothing like what Marx says. The roots of the issue begin in early childhood, and they disabuse a lot of us of what's best for us, because they insist that all the responsible people are the ones telling us to spend more time on this crap. Homework and make work and attendance. If they had the confidence, they'd let markets decide a lot of this stuff. But especially with this stuff that I said, my proposal. Yeah, a typical kid knows like 5 adults that they like and trust. And so hopefully there'll be enough, knowledge by those adults to choose wisely the courses which those kids will be taught and the specific skill sets they'll be taught. What skill are you left with once you get your high school diploma? What actual, how does he put it? He uses a term that's a good term for skills, but it's not like just skills. Illich in that book. Maybe the crow will help me remember. Yeah, what do you do when you're awash in vindication and the world is all mute about it? Like, how do you not just spiral into madness? At the same time, like, yeah, I understand that I ought to exhibit a lot of gratitude given how, badly off a lot of people increasingly are in the world, and how, my present tense self is okay. The further my knowledge grows and the more depth it attains to, the angrier I become, because I have to think about my former times. And I just, it was never my fault. I'm sorry. Whatever ailed me in life, it was never my fault. I engaged in some unwise activity as a youth, but that's because I had unwise friends who liked to pull fire alarms and shit. And so I didn't want to go home and suck and be a loser. Because I was already kind of, as the mid-teens onwards hit, it's like, yeah, I was spending more time at home than I wanted to back then. So yeah, I did some bad things, but in terms of the things that truly ailed me, it was always because I was just manipulated. I didn't think I was, because I'm gonna pone school by skipping classes increasingly. But the truth is, I wandered the streets of downtown Vancouver insecure about my future, just to understand why I am so hostile to cede ground to stuff like intersectionality, when I realized, what fucking messiah complex am I trying to do with this impartiality shit for? What kind of stupid psycho savior nonsense, neglect your own past messiah complex am I trying to do on YouTube with this impartiality crap? No one is doing impartiality in the world, so why should I? I never see my concerns reflected in any corner of society. So I'm going to go in business for myself by just noting that, it was never my fault. And I was manipulated, and odds are, if you're listening to me, you were too. So let's get angry together about it, and make him sweat, if nothing else. I don't think all hope is lost for reforms, but if we're not going to get reforms, let's make them sweat, if nothing else. I'm not going out with a whimper. I'm not going out anytime soon. If the world is truly fascinating, by the time I turn 65, I'll try to eke out an existence post-65. But, if there's as many dullards and politics kind of stabilizes, which is unlikely, Yeah, I'm happy to go at 65, but I'm not gonna go out with a whimper. No, sir. But I understand I ought to practice gratitude. I'm really well off compared to a lot of people, non-human beings. But it's just, there's a perfect correspondence between the increase of my knowledge and how all these systems work, and how it does tie to having a standing army and a strong economy that supports the ever bigger standing army. You connect these dots. Schooling is among, the tentacles that makes it all happen. It's schooling. No narrowing of all these kids' horizon for productivity ends. No powerful nation through standing army. You were manipulated. Maybe you want it to be. Maybe you love your nation more than you love yourself. Well, I'm nothing like you. And, maybe if I'm just a little more polite and a little less intense and a little more indoor voicey and safe sounding, yeah, maybe I just might build a movement out of this issue, and then we're gonna make you sweat, because you deserve to sweat. You people who love something else more than you love yourselves, or whatever, self-regard, let's say, and self-concern, because you're that fucking hollow and empty as people, because you suck. And so because they suck, those of us who understand that in a world as irreparable as this and as unsavory as this, yeah, we have to have self-regard more than we have regard for any other individual thing. And most of us do act that way, but when we speak and when we vote, we just discombobulate ourselves. And by we, I usually mean the nationalists, this MAGA crap, the Putinists, people who love some other entity more than they love themselves, or so they speak and vote. And they drag us down. They have all these other tentacles, but the schooling tentacle messed with my self-esteem, so why shouldn't I be furious? I always had intellectual self-esteem, and then I started flunking these classes, and God, these kids who were such dullards were outshining me. It was starting to happen even before my attendance dipped, and then I just acted out, and I thought that by acting out and having my attendance really dip in grade 11 and 12, that somehow I was going to show him up and, end up better off anyway. Well, I probably did end up better off anyway. If you read the Epstein emails, you'll see how many incredibly successful, financially successful people live mundane, dull, dreary lives to the point where they need to seek Epstein's advice in order to coom into a hot chick because their wife's not hot. So yeah, they want to coom into a hot chick. A young pussy. They ask Epstein for help. Yeah, but they're very financially successful, aren't they? Oh. But yeah, they're just, if you listen to the Ezra podcast with, what's-his-face, guy who hates billionaires, they just go on and on about the fact that, so many of these emails, I'm not going to pretend to have read, a million emails or even glanced at a million emails, but, so often, it's they're just, it just comes down to, if you take the podcast's word for it, they're very scheduled, overly regimented, uneventful lives. They're slaves to their routines. But how financially successful and impressive, and how we ought to bow to them and aspire to be like them. Certainly, if you ask the Glenn Lowrys, the Heather McDonalds, the Amy Waxes of the world, yeah, those men did everything right. Because they were employed by J.P. Morgan. Yeah. You're all a sick people. And if I could spit on all of you, I would. If I could spit on all of you in unison, I would. I wouldn't hurt you. I wouldn't even detain you like some masked ice chud and throw you to the ground. But I'd reserve one giant loogie for you all. So if you feel the way I do, vote no avail. Don't vote no avail, but prop up no avail through the internet. Let's make them sweat, because I think we can. You know, just for whatever petty reason, you know, people just refuse to let me be their spokesman. Okay, keep refusing. But if you really are able to just dispassionately sit and just absorb this book, don't just read it, absorb this book and think about your own scholastic experiences. Like, you were probably like me. It wasn't as clear at the time. You hated what happened to you, but it was more than a matter of simply, quote unquote, hating school. No. You know, you were mishandled and therefore, you know, marginalized. You were marginalized from your own fucking gifts and estranged to them. Your intellectual self-esteem was lowered. You're probably just too, you know, whatever. You know, intellectually buff to say it out loud and to admit it to yourself. Oh, I'm too intellectually buff to admit that anything could ever lower my intellectual self-esteem. Yeah, think about it long and hard. Your self-esteem probably rose and fell as per your report cards and your grades. Your honor roll, get it or don't get it. It's as pathetic as the fucking player who endeavors to be the slayer per body count, or whatever, the incel who endeavors to be the player. It's as pathetic. You know. Come on, let's go into business for ourselves. Let's be these scholastic revanchists. Let's fucking do it. Absorb that book and then re-listen to this, and you'll see that, yeah, okay, fine, I don't have to be this fucking spokesman. I'm too passionate. Clearly. I'm clearly too passionate. Not a Tuesday goes by. It's the 17th of February. Not a Tuesday goes by where I don't fucking yell about this stuff. What could have been if we just followed either my model here or Ilyach's model for how to do it right for once. Actually teach kids about important things in life and themselves and man.
It feels like the world's gone backwards.
Well, it has. It has. How naive do I sound when I say to you, do you know, I'm not sure I realised that being rich and powerful provided you with so much impunity.
Oh yes, we were young people singing their doom song to factory-styled schools designed to teach you obedience and get you a job.
Yeah. I'm reading a message that I'm just going to double check with Eleanor whether I should read it out or not, because you can probably guess what it's about, but it is about despair and how quickly how do we stop the despair if you are a young person who wants to engage with the world, but the world doesn't want your engagement. And I mean, listen, of course you can claim, I'm not going to get cross with you, Sarah, or anybody else who's suggesting that people have been sold unrealistic expectations with regard to degrees. 1 in 10 of the people that we're talking about are graduates. 1 in 10.
Couldn't be.
Claim, I'm not going to get cross with you, Sarah, or anybody else who's suggesting that people have been sold unrealistic expectations with regard to degrees. 1 in 10 of the people
before even the worst.
Who wants to engage with the world, but the world doesn't want your engagement.
Wants to / needs to subsist.
And I
no,
mean,
nobody wants
to engage
nobody
with the world,
head on their shoulders.
But the world doesn't want your engagement.
The world's not
I
worthy.
mean, listen, of course you can claim, I'm not going to get cross with you, Sarah, or anybody else who's suggesting that people have been sold unrealistic expectations with regard to degrees. 1 in 10.
It's not the world's fault. We need sustenance.
Of the people that we're talking about are graduates. 1 in 10 are graduates, okay? So
the world doesn't even want some graduates.
It may be relevant.
James won't neg diplomas still and certificates.
But it's relevant to 10% of the people that we're talking about. And in some ways, forgive me, in some ways their plight will be worse because they have got debt and they've had...
no shit.
And they've had, promises made and expectations enhanced of of reward for effort in a way, which should be the simplest thing of all, but it's gone.
Yeah.
It is so
And
tough.
they knew.
I'm 23. I'm a graduate. I did.
Yeah, they knew.
Bachelor's of Science.
There's no guarantees. Even if you get straight A's, they knew there's no guarantees. Nothing like even have the tuition back at graduation day or something. Guaranteed job in the line of work you majored in. Nothing like that. You took the bait. And some of you even denigrated those who were too wise for the bait.
And a Master's of Science. I studied 5 years for a job that I was promised I was going to get. And I have been working for minimum wage for the last 6 months as a carer. And it's an important job to do, obviously.
I'm just the kind of person who, it didn't bother me that I lived inside a glorified shoebox for like 15 years. It didn't bother me. I made do.
And not a single person from my entire class of 30 people has gotten the job that we were told we were going to get. And the rest of us are, just trying to make other plans. And it was so difficult. By the time you paid your bills and your rent, like you were saying,
you guys are so devastated. You allowed yourselves, you guys are so devastated, you allowed yourselves as a country to become utterly politically obsessed with like one guy. Imagine that, like a country that they're devastated. And so just as a country, they decide we're going to become utterly obsessed with like one guy. And very critical and scathing obsessed with one guy. Can you imagine such a thing? Not on this continent.
It's just everything is so expensive, and every single time you buy something, it's a little bit smaller than it was last time you bought it. And I've stopped making plans.
If Keir resigns, it'll start getting better. It's just Keir hasn't resigned yet.
So not a thing like you were saying.
Or maybe he has. It's been like half an hour since I checked.
I don't have the money for it. I've given up hope, and you just sort of take it day by day because that's all you can do.
And you are technically not part of the...
Something, I'm behind again. I'm always behind.
Looking for work, but not in work. You're looking for work while in work. So that's 729,000 people plus everybody in your boat.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and,
see?
I apply every single day. I'm applying for jobs.
Why don't you give Keir some credit, right? Yeah, there's still boats, that's why. It's all about the spectacle. Actual figures matter less than the spectacle.
But I'm looking for any job that I can possibly get that'll give me a career and not just part-time 0 hours work.
Yeah, I'm sure if you want to train to become a plumber, you could become a plumber.
It's so hard to get your foot in the door. I'm lucky if I get a rejection email nowadays.
How many?
Lass doesn't have enough social status or the type of social status she wants as plumber. Nah, Lass wants to keep being a bookworm.
How many are you sending out, would you say?
In the last year, I've probably sent over 100 applications to all sorts of different jobs. The majority do not bother replying. Sometimes you get a rejection, and that's it.
I tell you, one of the marks of how sad and bad things are is the feeling you get when you actually get a rejection. Oh, good, someone's acknowledged my existence, even though they're rejecting me.
Exactly.
We don't want your bookworming around here, but thanks for being a bookworm.
Lucky I get to know what happened with that application.
Yeah, but you're still better off than the typical man who had to be a miner.
Very different place from when I was your age, but I do
where
actually
the ground can collapse in on you and then you're still not dead. Yeah, you all still have it better than the typical man who had to be a miner and who still does, right? In some parts of the world, like in the US, there's still miners, and I'm sure every now and then the ground still does collapse in on them, and then some of them die and others just have their backs broken.
It was curious, but
heaven knows what else. Spinal cord.
30 people in your cohort. How many?
I'm having spinal cord issues.
Jobs that they thought they were
None of them have gotten jobs. Some of them went back home to live with their parents. That wasn't an option for me. So I'm just sort of trying to make,
And this is the crux for me. This is the crux of it, and I have to be careful not to fall back into trying to solve everything with one caller, with one experience. But the people who've gone back to live,
I understand if you are hurting
with their parents when they do.
James understands.
You do. They conclude it's not worth going out to do a job as a carer because my life.
James, according to Peter Singer, we step over drowning children every single day. We literally step over them. But there's a new drowning kid every day and then another one down the block and we just step over them because we have savings and stuff. Kind of makes you feel bad, doesn't it?
Not going to improve in any measurable way.
There's symbolically there's drowning children that we can technically help, but we don't because we prefer to have ever more savings or whatever luxuries. In my case, savings more so because I don't want to work forever, so it's There's kids who drown, who I can help from drowning, who I don't help from drowning because I prioritize my long-term security, and you do too. Or you prioritize something like that.
Because I'm going to be still...
But James understands.
Living the life that I'm living, so why would I do the work, the paid work?
Exactly. And the amount of people who've told me, like from the older generation, grandparents, that sort of thing, you just need to go and sell yourself, put yourself out there. And I responded, I tried literally...
Sell yourself on Lolita Island. Put yourself out there on Zorro Ranch.
Into places and tried to hand them a CV. They won't take it. They say apply online. I have phoned everybody.
It seems as the world's gone backwards.
Emailed everybody I know. I've networked. My CV is full of charity work and volunteering. I have an incredible experience working with incredible people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get you anywhere because you're filling an online application. They can't see who you are online.
Yeah. Because they're backwards.
It's going to make everything worse. Not only in the selection.
But even the online world's gone backwards.
So, in the case of some jobs, replacing humans.
Exactly.
It's going to make all this even worse.
For what you're going through.
But don't worry too much because Ezra's optimistic.
And I'm not going to pass
Ezra
wanging on about how bright and bubbly you sound or any nonsense like that. But I do wonder whether or not you've got a kind of escape route.
I was never devastated other than like when I saw just how dull some of the kids who made honor roll were. That devastated me. Oh man, I talk circles around these kids, but all this entire environment is selected for them
somewhere else, because that's the worst thing.
None of you care about that.
I think is
because none of you get
running out of options.
Yeah,
I think it is so sad because if you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have given you a list of so many things that I was actually really excited for.
Oh, I bet.
Sorry, I'll get a bit emotional, but I was so excited for my life to start. And I feel like I've been waiting for that for years, and it's just, I feel like I'm going backwards every single time I take a step forwards. I have looked overseas, but unfortunately you need to have quite a few years of experience to work as a physician associate overseas, and I actually can't even afford a plane ticket at the moment, so it wouldn't really be an option. I don't have too much support.
Do you ever think you're a dupe, though?
From
yeah,
people
it
around
sucks. It sucks that there's dupes, but, neither of you can get it. Yeah, he got it. There's dupes who don't get it, that we need to de-school society. Listen.
Arnold Toynbee has pointed out the decadence of a great culture is usually accompanied by the rise of a new world church, which extends hope to the domestic proletariat while serving the needs of the new warrior class. School seems eminently suited to be the world church of our decaying culture. No institution could better veil from its participants the deep discrepancy between social principles and social reality in today's world. Secular, scientific, and death-denying, it is of a piece with the modern mood. Its classical, critical veneer makes it appear pluralist, if not anti-religious. Its curriculum both defines science and is itself defined by so-called scientific research. No one completes school, yet. It never closes its doors on anyone without first offering him one more chance at remedial, adult, and continuing education. School serves as an effective creator and sustainer of social myth because of its structure as a ritual game of graded promotions. Introduction into this gambling ritual is much more important than what or how something is taught. It is the game itself at schools that gets into the blood and becomes a habit. The whole society is initiated into the myth of unending consumption of services. This happens to the degree that token participation in the open-ended ritual is made compulsory and compulsive everywhere. School directs ritual rivalry into an international game which obliges competitors to blame the world's ills on those who cannot or will not play. School is a ritual of initiation which introduces the neophyte to the sacred race of progressive consumption. A ritual of...
so none of them, said what he said. Yeah, none of them. They're all just something else. Collective bargaining. So that's the problem. It's like no one gets, that you all went to school. That's why you're all screwed. All of you don't get it. It's always something else. But no, let's see. There should not be people with degrees out there who are working minimum wage, And what was the point in studying 3 to 4 years, or just the previous years before then, right? It doesn't just apply to higher ed. You know, what was the point of K through 12 if you're not left with one single tangible skill, or just capacity to acquire insight even and see through bullshit? Yeah, K through 12, but you can't begin to see through bullshit when you get your diploma. Not even getting the chance to work in an industry you studied to get into. It's insanity. Yeah, so read Illich and others. But no, you know, anyone who commentates on this crap nowadays, you know, if they're alive, they're not making sense. If they're making sense, they're dead, and I'm exposing their works. That's how it goes. Is for profit. Yeah, see, the problem is profit. You know, obligatory schooling without profit, you know, then no one's going to be screwed over. No, because you're still insisting that, you know, person A ought to be able to dictate what person B learns and when they learn it and how they learn it. You know, that's the problem. You think you can tell others what they ought to learn, you know, and have it be sponsored by the state. Yeah, based on, you know, consumption research. Nigerian parking attendants with PhDs. Yeah, this is like, you know, even more dystopian than Brave New World. Yeah, I'll take Soma over this. Jeez.
Propitiation is academic priests mediate between the faithful and the gods of privilege and power.
Yeah.
A ritual of expiation which sacrifices its dropouts, branding them as scapegoats of underdevelopment. Even those who spend at best a few years in school, and this is the overwhelming majority in Latin America, Asia and Africa, learn to feel guilty because of their underconsumption of schooling. In Mexico, 6 grades of school are legally obligatory. Children born into the lower economic third have only 2 chances in 3 to make it into the first grade.
All kinds of
If they make it,
awful stats.
They have 4 chances in 100 to finish obligatory schooling by the 6th grade. If they're born into the middle third group, their chances increase to 12 out of 100. With these rules, Mexico is more successful than most of the other 25 Latin American republics.
It gets
in
worse.
Providing public education.
It gets worse. But that was the 70s or 60s, I guess, the data's from. So, yeah, I'm sure all the gangs have made all that. You know, the proliferation of gangs, I'm sure that's made all the schooling that much better.
If I'm to say it all in one sentence, I'd say what it feels like is you pay the rent for where you live, and then you still get evicted. Like, you've done all the right things, you've signed up to the societies, you've done the free work, the volunteering, the work experience, and then you still can't get your foot in the door when it's your turn to make money from what you studied and what you love to do.
Too little, how slowly does that penny drop?
Today, the school system, and especially the university, provides ample opportunity for criticism of the myth and for rebellion against its institutional perversions. But the ritual which demands tolerance of the fundamental contradictions between myth and institution still goes largely unchallenged, for neither ideological criticism nor social action can bring about a new society. Only disenchantment with and detachment from the central social ritual and reform of that ritual can bring about radical change. The American university has become the final stage of the most all-encompassing initiation rite the world has ever known. No society in history has been able to survive without ritual or myth, but ours is the first which has needed such a dull, protracted, destructive, and expensive initiation into its myth. The contemporary world civilization is also the first one which has found it necessary to rationalize its fundamental initiation ritual in the name of education. We cannot begin a reform of education unless we first understand that neither individual learning nor social equality can be enhanced by the ritual of schooling. We cannot go beyond the consumer society unless we first understand that obligatory public schools inevitably reproduce such a society, no matter what is taught in them. The project of demythologizing, which I propose, cannot be limited to the university alone. Any attempt to reform the university without tending to the system of which it is an integral part is like trying to do urban renewal in New York City from the 12th story up. Most current college-level reform looks like the building of high-rise slums. Only a generation which grows up without obligatory schools will be able to recreate the university. The myth of institutionalized values. School initiates, too, the myth of unending consumption. This modern myth is grounded in the belief that process inevitably produces something of value, and therefore, production necessarily produces demand. School teaches us that instruction produces learning. The existence of schools produces the demand for schooling. Once we have learned to need school, all our activities tend to take the shape of client relationships to other specialized institutions. Once the self-taught man or woman has been discredited, all non-professional activity is rendered suspect. In school we are taught that valuable learning is the result of attendance, that the value of learning increases with the amount of input, and finally, that this value can be measured and documented by grades and certificates. In fact, learning is the human activity which least needs manipulation by others. Most learning is not the result of instruction. It is rather the result of unhampered participation in a meaningful setting. Most people learn best by being with it, yet school makes them identify their personal cognitive growth with elaborate planning and manipulation. Once a man or woman has accepted the need for school, he or she is easy prey for other institutions. Once young people have allowed their imaginations to be formed by curricular instruction, they are conditioned to institutional planning of every sort. Instruction smothers the horizon of their imaginations. They cannot be betrayed, but only shortchanged, because they have been taught to substitute expectations for hope. They will no longer be surprised, for good or ill, by other people, because they have been taught what to expect from every other person who has been taught as they were. This is true in the case of another person, or in the case of a machine. This transfer of responsibility from self to institution guarantees social regression, especially once it has been accepted as an obligation. So rebels against alma mater often make it into her faculty, instead of growing into the courage to infect others with their personal teaching and to assume responsibility for the results.
It is not at all unlikely that an individual crisis will someday become generalized and thereby acquire significance, no longer psychological but historical. This is not a matter of mere hypothesis. There are signs we must get used to interpreting.
Where's the non-fake stuff? Recent? Yeah, there's nothing recent. Everything's fine. It won't contain the truth. The truth is hard to ascertain. Only the doctors know. Only... What does CNN know firsthand that we don't? No, only Trump's doctors know. Did he do this again? Did he do it again? No, earlier. why bring up stuff that's earlier, right? So CNN's desperate. Yeah, bring up stuff he said earlier. Yeah, well, that's... I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make of that at all, actually. But sure. It was, yeah, okay, it was a lone crazed gunman. Sure. I don't know. 5 minutes read, more like 5 minutes too late. Yeah, this, yeah, five years too late. Yeah. Is he gonna be a goner though? Should be ashamed of yourselves, CNN, for your advertisement sketches. You should be ashamed of yourselves. I don't know. I'm not gonna read the stupid article. Of course he did. Of course he did. We'll keep doing it. I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, is it? I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, is it? I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, is it? I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, is it? I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, is it? I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, is it? I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, is it? Jeff McMahon on how Derek Parfit's work will affect humanity. I think he said something positive or hopeful. And then I commented in the way I comment, and it was 7 years ago, so I forget exactly what Jeff said, but it seemed like Jeff was positive and hopeful. And then someone reminded me that it was a comment I left 7 years ago, and then I'm like, oh, I got to snip it. Because, you know, when someone replies years later, it makes you remember the comment. And it makes you realize just how often you're prescient on the internet. It's like I'm so prescient so often that I forget how often across the years that I've been prescient. What do I say? Very pessimistic about that. Too much noise, i.e. political YouTubers averaging 100K hits per video, which now seems quaint. Competing with the signal. The future is rhetoric, identity, and pride, not cautious, impersonal analysis. The future is wrecked. Oh man, I'm so awesome. And you know, I've kind of been dragged down as well. You know, I've had to boost the entertainment value, but it hasn't helped. You know, this is like quaint now. What I thought like was a big number 7 years ago. No, that's not a big number. you know, the attentional power consolidates, and like the progs are just so fucking stupid. They keep fixating on wealth consolidating and the, you know, wealth to government pipeline consolidating, all that stuff. The billionaires are going to become trillionaires. That's a problem too. But the other problem is, you know, the attention also consolidates to fewer and fewer voices. But yeah, this is just kind of a brag segment to say like, oh God, I leave prescient comments so often, I forget about them until someone replies. I even forget what the reply guy said. He didn't notice that, you know, it was a comment from like 7 years ago. I was prescient, and they will all be respectively forgotten by anyone worth their marbles, as well as anyone not. I wouldn't be so pessimistic, though I of course share, if not exceed, in feelings of disappointment. Yeah, well, thank you for your reply, but my comment's better.
It feels like the world's gone backwards.
Well, it has.
Smart people don't like me.
Only these clowns are dropping the Avignon papacy.
So you couldn't make that up, right?
You can't make that up.
You couldn't invent that detail.
You couldn't invent that anecdote. Right. And it's important to understand like the combination of people that Trump has around. Like he has like total losers and clowns who had no hope in politics.
We've all heard of female conjecture in the West, if we watch Me. But, you know, sometimes there's male conjecture in the West. Gay male conjecture.
And
yeah, what does he say?
You couldn't invent that anecdote. Right. And it's important to understand like the combination of people that Trump has around. Like he has like total losers and clowns who had no hope in politics, and if he was their ticket, like
I guess this part is not conjecture, but he's about to conjecture
them. And then there's a handful of like aggrieved super dorks.
Yeah.
Okay? Like Roosevelt, who got swirlied in high school and went to Harvard and Yale, and now this is their moment for revenge. And those are the guys that are dropping the Avignon historical threats to the ambassador from the Holy See. Similarly, on threats to NATO over Iran, there's 2 bleeps from the president over the past 24 hours. All caps, NATO wasn't there when we needed them, and they won't be there if we need them again. Remember Greenland, that big, poorly run piece of ice, and then posted this morning. None of these people, including our own very disappointing NATO, understood anything unless they have pressure placed upon them. I think he's trying to say.
I want to go back to bugging Tim, but
they don't understand anything unless they have pressure placed upon them. So that's it. I mean, again, he's like threatening Greenland obliquely, threatening NATO again, upset that they did not.
I think Anne's very happy today because what is today? Hang on, can I do this? I'm slouching here. Sorry, folks. Oh man, is it Fareed? Yeah, even David had Fareed on, but he doesn't put Fareed's name in the. Yeah, that's Fareed Zakaria. But yeah, it's the 13th. Her guy won in Hungary, which is good. Yeah, it's a fine conversation, but you know, they just Tim conjectures, and she's supposed to be a scholar. What'd you call him on his conjecture, Anne? Yeah, it's going after the bad people. So it's okay. It's okay to conjecture about the bad people. They are bad, and you know, he is a dork, but still, you can't prove that he got swirlied in high school. You got to prove it, Tim.
Join us in the war of choice.
Just like they got to prove that Trump has smaller hands, like proportional to his body, like his hands are disproportionately small. No, it's post-truth. Yeah, there's post-truth, and it's forgiven when it comes from the people who aren't the bad people.
In Iran, that we did not ask them to join us, or that we did not ask them to be a part of or brief them on or include them in any way.
Right. So
I'm deflated. Let this be an outtake.
Frankly, the only surprise is that this hasn't happened earlier. These guys are so thin-skinned. Their threats are so haphazard. They're using the DOJ to come after all foes.
He's on record with that one.
Guys are so thin-skinned.
He said it.
Their threats are so haphazard. They're using the DOJ to come after all foes. That, of course, eventually they would end
Can't deal with someone who doesn't mind being thin-skinned. I'm thin-skinned. I'm not going to change. I'm gonna become president through it.
Bulwark and send some threats
Or
our
whatever.
way. In
Just
this
hang on.
case,
It's a story. It's a
that,
serious
of
story.
course, eventually,
Tim conjectured, but Tim doesn't deserve this, and neither do Tim's colleagues.
Up feeling like they had to clap back.
The journalists don't deserve to be threatened.
Threats our way.
These
In this case, the White
reporters
House
or
feeling like they
whatever,
had
the
to clap back
pundits,
at the Bulwark
talking
and
heads,
send some threats our way. In this case, the White House has decided to suggest I should be investigated over the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, for sharing some reporting.
Yeah, I bet that wasn't it. It was what you said about Vogue, the dweeb. Yeah, it's all the dweeb guy. Shouldn't have trashed him and said he got swirled months ago.
Not my sources, by the way. It was a different organization's sources.
Oh,
I find it absolutely...
It was Ezra's organization.
Hilarious that a White House and a Trump family...
It shouldn't be treated with levity.
...is literally on the take from several foreign governments, is going to accuse others and threaten others and say that they should be investigated.
Yeah, if Carney's DOJ threatened me, Mark Carney, the banker who's in control of Canada, so Canada can get strong. Yeah, if Carney's DOJ or Canadian DOJ threatened me, I'd lose a lot of sleep. So I don't mean to make levity with this.
Their relationships to
no one should threaten anyone.
They might be a foreign agent. The president is a foreign agent. The president's family is a foreign agent. He got a free plane from Qatar.
No, Tim's conjecturing again or misusing language. That's not what a foreign agent means. He just curries favors.
Relationships to foreign countries. They might be a foreign agent. The president is a foreign agent. The president's family is a foreign agent.
That's not what it means.
He got a free plane from Qatar.
I guess it's at least you didn't say he's Krasnov.
Crypto business got a bailout, a massive multi-billion-dollar bailout.
He's got foreign entanglements, but really what he has is scumbag entanglements. Reprobates know no nationality. Yeah. Reprobates come in all shapes and sizes and underwear, wearing underwear on heads and, the schooled minds. And I won't do the graphic. I've done Marco enough in this video.
UAE. His
super
son-in-law
late,
is on
man.
the take
It's super
from Saudi Arabia
tight.
while he's negotiating this Iran deal. They are building golf courses.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing that I'm not. I want to cover this more.
His son-in-law.
Yeah, I want to cover this more. I'm going to cover it with graphics, but that's about it. This is really like next level looting.
From Saudi Arabia while he's negotiating this Iran deal. They are building golf courses in several countries around the world. They're involved in...
I've got like 3 more Iran war related songs, but I can't do more songs here. But, I got to speed it up because the Iran war might be ending.
Rare earth mineral projects in Kazakhstan and elsewhere. They're looking at rare earth mineral projects in Greenland. No one has ever been a foreign agent of...
Nobel Peace Prize winning psychiatrist. Trump is mentally unfit and must be removed from office 1 day ago, on May 31st. Yeah, they haven't done it for, 10 plus years, 10 and a half years. They're not going to do it because the Nobel Peace Prize winning psychologist recommended it.
More countries than the Trump family.
But it ought to happen.
So the foreign agents are inside the house. If J.D. Vance wants to investigate fraud and wants to investigate FARA, he should...
We'll depose Carney if you guys will depose Trump. Fair trade.
Look into the
the new...
maybe start there.
The new NAFTA. The new fair trade.
This is not really much to worry about. It's a ridiculous accusation. I have no relationship with Iran.
Sometimes you're ridiculous, Tim, calling Trump a foreign agent. No, it's just others who aren't American can also be scum.
The tweet that I sent, again, was based on someone else's reporting. Let's just run through it so you can just see the ludicrousness of this together.
Ravenous, and then there's
letter, which is summarizing
Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and just so many of them. He finds so many of them. Many of them who I would have thought just wouldn't trust him, and somehow, they do deals or whatever, coordinated crypto theft of the stupid people's money. The stupid people who are not connected and who think they can, get something through this underworld currency. No, you fucking morons. You need the state to manage your currency. Anytime you have some undercurrent, underworld currency. It's like these well-connected, reprobate people are going to steal your money, as has been happening. They'll even start wars so they can help them do it more.
A separate report, they write, breaking, Iranian state media announces initial deals of the MOU for the U.S.-Iran peace deal. They go through some of the details of the deal per Iran. Since this tweet has been posted, Trump's favorite reporter...
I mean, I want Iran to end. I want it to, just be done. But if it doesn't happen, then, the one silver lining is that my songs that I'll use in future videos will remain topical, because they're about Iran.
Mark Ravid at Axios has offered the White House's view of what is in this memorandum of understanding. So they're competing descriptions, what is out there. Here was my post that was the offending post according to the White House. Trump's initial demand was unconditional surrender. That's a fact. The White House's initial demand here was unconditional surrender. Now the current MOU is to open the strait that had been previously opened, but under Iran control, and withdraw our military from the region. And then maybe after 2 months, we can continue.
Yeah, what's the transcript of the interactions between the Trump regime and the Iranian regime? Crazies. It just seems like, what is it now? He started it February 28th. Here we are, end of March. And it's as if they never even spoke to each other, given what they think might work as a demand. But it's that way with a lot of these, let's sit down and talk to the people from the other nation who are going to be nice to us in the meeting. So we might get somewhere because, they're diplomats and, whatever, these ambassadors, intelligence people. Yeah. They're going to talk to us nicely and maybe offer us tea and crumpets. So we'll get somewhere. But no one ever gets anywhere, especially when there's like a war. But man, at least Russia's getting its ass kicked.
Nuclear negotiations have already been happening before. Yikes, that was my take. The White House's
Putin's scared, allegedly.
Interpretation of what is happening in these negotiations is that they wouldn't withdraw our military, but everything else in this tweet is the same, basically, from what the Axios report says. Here is the White House's response to me. Tim Miller has such a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome that has warped his peanut-sized brain.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on in the future to not call anyone a victim of Trump derangement syndrome, but I'll leave it there.
Feels like the world's gone backwards. It has, and...
That's right. But votes won't stand up against guns.
I've always been thin-skinned. I've been thin-skinned from day one.
Turgeon's group is out with a new report. In it, they found the Pentagon has invested at least $62.6 million US in projects located across Canada. We've also been independently digging into the numbers. An analysis by the Fifth Estate found even more investment by the Department of Defense, another $260 million.
Oy vey.
One of the companies targeted for funding is a rare earth processor called Ucore, based in an unassuming office building in Halifax.
If it really is all about just retreating back into the Western Hemisphere, and if they're feeling very bruised and humiliated, people who are bruised and humiliated act even more irrationally sometimes. And I'm worried that Trump will be now feeling he has to lash out and show what a tough guy he is, and he'll do something crazy with Canada.
Oy vey, indeed.
Fragile ceasefire announced in war between the United States and Iran.
Oy vey, a cruise.
Some strange details emerging.
It's been over. It's been ended.
A toll booth being set up on the Straits of Hormuz.
It's a two-sided ceasefire. Yeah, it's a two-sided one. Oh man,
Iran in charge? Maybe the United States, President Trump.
Israel's not playing, but man, Israel's not playing ball. But Canada's gonna have to play
in this operation.
Canada's gonna have to play ball.
Devout supporter. When our kid is born, his first word is Hezbollah. What do you think he will say when he grows up?
Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Fame proudly being fearless. Fame proudly being fearless. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Fame proudly being fearless. Fame proudly being fearless. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Fame proudly being fearless. Fame proudly being fearless. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Millions of your own Americans. Millions of lives stand to be lost because of your own leaders' belligerence. Millions of lives stand to be lost because of your leaders' deranged belligerence. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Fame proudly being fearless. 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 Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Oh boy, millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Your sons and daughters. Your precious sons and daughters. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Depose your leader, or else. Millions of lives stand to be lost. Millions of your own Americans. Your precious sons and daughters. Your precious sons and daughters. Your precious sons and daughters. No Avail is eager to eat a liver or two. Hi, my name is No Avail. I've got a candy in my mouth, so it's gonna be a little garbled. But my name is No Avail. I'm just here to say I'm a perfectly amiable fella, actually. If the thing presented itself to me, a liver, or if I had to dig it out, I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't have a liver. I don't know why I say, and I sometimes just impulsively, even in a rant or even I guess in a song, at the end of a song, it's more justified. But it's like, God, is that the impression I want to make? Like, yeah, people think I'm joking, but at the same time, I admit to violent fantasies. So it's like, yeah, I just might eat a liver if I say so, and if I present it forcefully. But it's like, no, I wouldn't. It's the candy part. I just figured, I don't care if I'm eating candy. This has to be said. I don't know why, I forcefully have to make these kinds of, it's just, it really sucks the spot that Canada's at. Canada's back among like one of the three big ones they want to grab, they want to touch. I think I want to go to Australia. Yeah, Australia is kind of nice and isolated and uninvolved and disengaged for now. Yeah, no, it's just the evening of the 20th. I just finished the Fame proudly being fearless. Fame proudly being fearless. That's what they're doing. God, how can you be subject to these disposability laws and bear it and think that it's graceful? You're subject as a troop to disposability laws of the most flagrant kind as a troop who's now going to be part of the subject mass that tries to conquer the other lands that you must know on some level, you must know is unjustifiable. Legally, morally, goddamn this candy. Legally, morally, So it's like, yeah, I have violent fantasies on the uptick because I conjecture about the future and how I'm going to become one of these trained 45. I got my 45. I'm going to have to be one of the guys who just casually says, I got my 45. And it's like credible. That's like the next 5 years agenda for me. Like in 5 years, I have to be one of the guys. So it's like, I just did an audience, like, I have my 45. And like, it's credible. I got to get there. But I'm psychologically averse to it. I shouldn't fess to it. Plus, there was that study. It's a very complex telling of how exactly it happens, but it does damage your, skull even. Your anatomy takes like a bolt when you fire of anything. When you fire it and it goes kablamo, your anatomy takes a bolt and it's like damages your skull and brain. It's a study that says it. And it's like it explains a lot. It explains a lot about Kid Rock for the most part. Yeah, Paid, but you should all listen to Paid. Yeah, I don't care what Kid Rock says or does. Paid is a fantastic song, lyrically, notably. Paid. Yeah, I don't dare. I don't dare. No, I just did the, millions of lives stand to be lost, and I ended up freaking just impulsively saying, "Oh, you eat livers." Like, no. Your sons and daughters best stay away from me as troops, and me, qua me, they best stay away from me, Because I don't want to be one of the guys who has to, talk about his AK, his AK anything, or, here's this graphic. Yeah, I don't want to be this guy. Yeah, this guy. The guy who even thinks he has to hide behind the couch. Guy. I don't want that to be my future, and this stupid Froster is making it so. So I have violent fantasies, and I just impulsively say I want to eat livers, but I don't. I'm quite the amiable fellow. I just don't know why I have to overperform aggression and violence and violent outbursts. I overperform prospective, fictional, would be, forcefully perspectful, violent outbursts. I overdo it rhetorically. I guess men really are broken, Yeah, women don't do this kinds of stuff. And it's like, yeah, we could, I could learn from women. Women don't do this kind of stuff. But women do a lot of other low down, dirty stuff that, we'll get to when the world stabilizes. The world ain't stable. This world is not stable. It's 77 million knuckle-dragging nationalists, give or take, and whatever, evangelical, even worse, dogma-having types. Yeah, flip a coin. You want a nation of evangelicals or a nation of nationalists? Flip a fucking coin. It's rooted in the same fearful dogma that now wants to expand its reach. Yeah, American dogma wants to expand its reach. Well, I got to reach for you. I'm doing the, I should have done this as a video. You know, I'm doing that, thumb between the index and the middle finger gesture. Yeah, that's what I got for America right now, but it's an audio, so I'll just take a picture of it. Fuck America so hard. Make America go away. Seriously now. You know, let's unite, and I'll support the troops. Especially if I know them. And if I know them to be worth a damn as individuals, then I'll double support the troops who are going to fight for the non-barbarous causes. Even if the world has more bad in it, you know, like notably because of stuff like decrepitude and old age and the stench of death. Channel a bit of shop. You know, the stench of death, you know, coming in as the decrepitude wears on and makes you ever thinner and frayer, and that's part of why the bad prevails over the good. That's why you don't see it presented as it is in your glam fashion or anything. Yeah, you don't see those decrepit elderly people who are months or weeks or days from the stench of death. But you know, on top of that, it's like we can be driven off a cliff because of the fucking knuckle-dragging nationalists or conspiracists or, you know, info warriors. Yeah, the info warriors might just drive the world off a cliff. And millions of lives, millions of American lives, make no mistake. And I'm going to have to fucking go to Australia because I'm just, you know, sorry, my mind is too pristine for the war. So Australia best, whatever, I'll sleep in a kangaroo's pouch. I don't mind, I'll downgrade. But I don't want to eat any livers, and, you know, I really do come in peace. It's just the world's got a lot of morons in it. Whole lot of dipshits, and, you know, how do you stay nice? I don't understand anyone who stays nice when it comes to all these camps. These ideological camps who wouldn't know modestly personal philosophy if it bit them in the anus. You don't say I didn't warn you. It's actually a cold recording. I haven't seen it.
This is Vikram Digra, the killer, on the night he stabbed Henry Novak multiple times.
Yeah, it's like another reason the UK is going to be ablaze.
Police released this body cam footage.
8,000 something, but
4 other people
seems like this is going to be a big one.
Be seen while Henry is on the floor.
I haven't seen it. I don't know. I probably can't show it. You know, I may compromise this whole video if I show it. I don't know how bad it is. I've not seen it. I'd figure we'd watch together. It's hour 3. It's just me. It's just me in hour 3. But the reason I'm doing this is because James retitled his video. His whole like day-long video, James retitled it. There's so much James coming up in future videos, but James retitled it. The initial title was, or did he just re-upload it? Yeah, because this is new. But it was like a full day's worth, and it said, why is Nigel Farage making so-and-so's Novak murder about him? And then I thought, yeah, James, but why are you making Novak's murder about Nigel? And why am I making Novak's murder about you? Can't we just agree that a horrible thing happened and that, well, that about sums it up. Horrible things happen all the time, right? Can't we just agree it's yet another horrible thing that happened? But he either re-uploaded the whole thing or he retitled. He couldn't have retitled it because I saw it way more than 4 minutes ago. But I just spotted that he retitled it. I'm like, oh, I want to just wonder why. I guess he got a lot of blowback. But it's like, yeah, why is Nigel making it about Nigel? But it's like, what? Why are you making it about Nigel, making it about Nigel? Yes, you want to strike back because it's a tug of war, no matter what goes on and how, you know, apparently apolitical the murder was, right? It was an apolitical murder, but it was, I guess it was ethnically charged. Yeah, earlier in the video I said that non-whites aren't safe.
around whites in the US, but, you know, it could be argued and it could be granted that at times, you know, it's something like the other way around. You know, sometimes the whites aren't safe around others. Yeah, sometimes other whites to the point where they kill whites. And set the UK ablaze yet some more. Yeah,
It keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying
don't murder whites if you want a healthy political future, non-whites.
He's got another one, I don't want him.
But it's apolitical, I'm sure. Henry Nowak. Yeah, George Floyd said the same thing. Yeah, you know, if you're not a racist, yeah, that's kind of, you know, no one should have to say, I can't breathe, whether it's Henry Nowak or George Floyd. If you're not a racist, right, no one should ever have to say, I can't breathe. And therefore, you know, you shouldn't give in to FOMO by creating more, or you know it'll inevitably happen. You know, in the future, people will keep saying, I can't breathe. That will be their end, because you all had to have more, because you have like collective FOMO. It's called natalism. It's collective FOMO.
A discussion takes place between police and bystanders.
I made it about other stuff, but I really should just see if we can catch James talking about Nigel James and his gravitas.
A very good morning indeed.
It's always, yeah, it's gravitas with James.
The time. A very good morning indeed to you.
He'll get to Nigel.
What a horrible morning it is.
Yeah, you'll get to Nigel.
I don't know what to do.
What?
I don't often admit that to you. And if I do, it's sometimes a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because I get to decide anyway.
Yeah, but Nigel...
A blade, so as the judge pointed out in court, the dispensation...
I'm a hungry boy today.
Really,
I haven't eaten.
Really have applied.
I'm late. I'm late.
Scumbag.
Yeah, it's late.
And that is a conversation that can be prompted by this. But to have a conversation about, to try to turn it into a conversation about immigration, the problem with what you just said is that one day a family will join in. I remember. I do remember the murder of Alice Gross in West London in Ealing. And the man who murdered her
without pausing
was a Latvian immigrant, I think. And the family begged publicly for people not to turn it into a conversation about immigration, or not to let it be a conversation about immigrants. And they were, of course, completely ignored. And
yeah, it shouldn't be, because of the magnificent point I just made that I didn't even think in advance. But it's like the best point to make, right? Both men said, I can't breathe. And both men had their murders politicized. I should just say George in the past tense, but I'm sure Nowak will too. It's already happened.
Police released
But
this
like in
body cam
infamy,
footage.
yeah, it's gonna be
4 other people can be seen while Henry is on the floor.
Yeah, it's gonna be an infamy murder.
He keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep the set up. He's got another full of blood, I don't want him.
A discussion takes place between police
What I said. And, yeah. UK should have less immigration. Economy be damned. Yeah, so there's more. There is more. It's apolitical, but there is more. Yeah. It's just another cops suck more thing that not be primarily about cops sucking more often than, you know, one might think. Yeah, that's another one where I was prescient and I'm beyond vindicated, is the cops suck far more than the common sucker would like to think. Far more. I'm not going to put a magnitude on it, but far more. You know, the kind of sucker who's born every day thinks. So, yeah, if anything, you know, how might they justify that? How might they justify it? Yeah, I'll do non-knee-jerk coverage of this after I've read cases, you know, or whatever, reviews of cases pertaining to this. But, yeah, it's just... At some point, you know, considering how prevalent video is, and therefore video of awful things, and ethnically charged things, you know, it proliferates, it sets things ablaze. So at some point, it really just does come down to, what do you value more? The economy or political stability. I don't care how much you don't like the choice. It's a choice. You know, I tend to value as a miser and as a you know, anti-consumer. As a miser, I'm an anti-consumer and many other things. You know, despiser of just about everyone. Yeah, I can go without an economy. It suit me just fine. But yeah, there's certain, you know, no more, you know, there's no more this. But then it's like, how did I make this video? Oh, right, because there is more. I just lied when I said no more luxury for me. But whatever, you know, if the only way to keep political stability is to get rid of this and to bring it back to no more, okay, no more. I'll take political stability. I don't want to die in a stupid race war, you know, fighting against the whites because I don't want to be a fascist. You know, there's enough fascists, right? Even if you have grounded concerns, you know, your entirely grounded concerns, reducing to immigration, like, yeah, it should bother you that there's that many, you know, white supremacists among you. But it doesn't bother you, so it's like, yeah. Yeah, so cops behave badly, cops suck, that's the lesson. And yeah, there's more to the story, but it's still not a political murder. Yeah, you can have grounded concerns. I have grounded concerns in many things, but yeah, I'm not gonna be a bedfellow with like actual fascists or whatever you want to call them, white supremacists. I don't care. It's like people, you know, people who like don't give a shit about like huge chunks of their fellow humans, right? Not just like the reprobates and the criminals and the whatever they want to, you know, the deviants, men like Destiny. No, they don't confine it to like deviants and perverts and stuff and, you know, odious folks. They like confine it to whole races. Yeah. You know, the MAGA dullards and the whatever, the reform, much of this reform crap in the UK. It's like, yeah, you know, y'all's has just been too coddled by mommy and daddy too long, and that's why the whole idea of a non-racial politics like seems like, I don't know, defeatist to you. That's how coddled you've been by your fam. Putrid. Yeah, so look, whatever, you know, one doesn't have to be an ethnocentrist to say no to more immigration. As I just proved by going after the far right. Whatever. Hardcore tradcons. Right? But at the same time, I'm saying, no more immigration. There's been enough. We'll do without the economy. We need the political stability. Certainly the UK does. Arguably Canada too. Much more on that later. But yeah, you know, you don't have to do it along ethnocentric grounds. You just do it along the lines of valuing political stability. You know, when havoc is the only alternative.
But what are they responding to? Self-interest or media coverage? This idea that, oh, look, here's another crisis. Dumpy.
I guess that's based on his diet. Yeah, it's just...
At this point, they've done CT scans. They've shown I've got a fractured eye, fractured nose, but they couldn't operate or anything because the swelling was so big. It's still swollen now. So since I've come back to the UK as well, I've been in and out of hospital. I've seen the doctor. They're going to do further scans, and I'm expected to do surgery on my face. Because if you actually look, this side of my face, I guess the cheek is quite high and pointy, but here is quite flat. So what I've been told is the surgeon's going to have to dig into my cheek and basically lift up my cheekbone to get it, back to normal and symmetrical.
Oh man!
So I'm just waiting on that.
What did he say?
Back to normal and symmetrical.
Hang on.
So my cheekbone to get it back to normal and symmetrical.
I think that curvingular guy, that
if I just go back to what happened.
That guy who like destroys himself so that like chicks find him hot. I think he hears shit like this and he's like, "Oh,
cheekbone to get it back to normal and symmetrical."
I'm green with envy because Leslie gets it. Leslie gets to have more surgery where like curvingular is all surgeried out.
If I just go back to what happened in France after being discharged, we did report it.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, it's perfect. It's
get it back to normal and symmetrical.
Yeah, it's curvingular.
So I'm just waiting on that, but. If I just go back to what happened in
France. The phenomenon of look-maxing. What's looks... Hey, here's a generic article. What's looks-maxing? What's looks-maxing? And I'm like, it's what chicks were doing all along.
And whistleblowers. Oh.
Could have been so much fun if there were comments, but CBC.
So I want to read you some text written above a video
CBC
uploaded to
chickens
X earlier
out.
this month. First, the video
CBC always chickens out, but it would have been fun here.
of a young man at a party surrounded by women. And the women are hitting on the
CBC discovered that there's a dark net that they want to learn about or, teach the audience about.
guy behind the
Wait,
camera.
what?
Text written above a video uploaded to X earlier this month. First, the video is of a young man at a party surrounded by women. And the women are hitting on the guy behind the camera.
My friend likes your cameraman. He likes
thirsty.
you. What's your name? I want to eat you. Tell us your name.
Wow, that's a thirsty bitch. What did she say? I want to eat you.
My friend likes your cameraman. He likes you. What's your name? I want to eat you.
Oh, man, that's like hornier than Epstein.
Oh, his name is Kurt. Okay, here's the text because
I would
this is the
have
important
thumbed you up, but you turned off the comments.
Clavicular was
Oh, hey, she's going to read the comments. She's going to read the comments.
What's your name?
Oh, more thirst.
his name is Kurt.
I rewound the thirst.
Here's the text because this is the important part. Quote, Clavicular was mid-gestergooning when a group of foids came and spiked his cortisol levels.
So far, so good.
Is ignoring the foids while munting and mogging moids more useful than SMV chadfishing in the club?
Yeah, mostly clear.
So, this got more than 30,000 likes, and I can honestly say that when it made its way across my desk, I understood maybe less than 1% of it.
Well, of course, because you work for the CBC.
It's part of an online ecosystem dominated by young men, largely built around an
Or not so young.
influencer named Clavicular, and a phenomenon he has mainstreamed called looks-maxing.
I don't think it was whoever that person is.
Essentially a community
I remember this shit from the 2010s.
young men that have dedicated themselves to the pursuit of maximizing their own looks, often at great personal costs, spending tens of thousands of dollars on cosmetic procedures or even taking blunt force objects to their own faces in the hopes of masculinizing their features.
1/3 as stupid as getting a BBL. It's 1/3 as stupid, which you gotta know is really stupid.
All of this to, as
Blunt
they say,
force.
ascend or become more conventionally attractive. At a time when so many young
We don't have the high ground anymore. Men had the high ground for millennia, but now they lost it.
particularly young men,
Because of the
feel
dark
as
net.
though the future is foreclosed, that it is impossible to get ahead. We're going to bring you inside a world of young men leveraging their bodies in the hopes of doing exactly that.
Let the young men
Aiden Walker
make fun
is
of
a
you in
writer
the
and content
comments.
creator
Come
whose
on.
work
Let
explores all kinds of
let middle-aged men make fun of you in the comments too, because you're just so, professional about this. How do you cover this and not make jokes along the way?
Wide subculture.
I guess it's because you work for the CBC and they don't like jokes much.
And he joins the show today to talk about looks-maxing, its central characters, and what the movement reveals about young men and our moment.
Yeah, it's what is it? No more advantage, no more high ground. Yeah, no more
Aiden,
high.
hi. It is really good to have you back on the show.
Thanks so much. I guess, there were some women who felt this way too when the other stupid women did the BBLs. So yeah, this is how I empathize with women.
And now, in the next few weeks, I'm going to play that card. We were just waiting. And you can't stop the signal, no matter how hard you try. Built to the brim with girlish glee, cleaner girls from school.
Why is there a... It's downtown Dallas. It's downtown Dallas. It's downtown Dallas. Of course he has a taser. I thought this was America. I thought...
Gary has no character. That's what hadn't changed. Character. The kind with the Ewing brand on it.
That gets to the heart of it.
You mean a man has no character if he doesn't want to play the survival games we play? He's weak, let's face it, he's just weak. You'd label any man weak who didn't want to stick a knife in somebody's back to earn an extra buck. I'm gonna let that pass. You're worried about our brother, but don't get... I'm trying very hard to understand you, JR. To understand the way this family thinks. Now, what is so wrong about a man being gentle instead of ruthless? Well, sometimes a man has to become ruthless. But one of these days, somebody will walk into your house and take away everything you got. Sometimes, JR. Not all the time.
A country has to be ruthless.
I like...
Or others will come and
JR.
take the country unless the country becomes...
What is so wrong about a man being gentle instead of ruthless?
A country becomes ever more ruthless.
A man has to become ruthless.
Yeah.
But one of these days, somebody will walk into your house and take away everything you got.
Or to your country.
JR. Not all the time. I like Gary. I like his sense of humor. I like his way of...
Gary the globalist. Just stay out.
You like the way he ran out on his little girl twice?
Yeah,
You like the way he
globalist.
broke his mother's heart? You like that, do you?
George Soros funded rap. Candace Owens theory that rap proliferates because George Soros and them artificially inflate rap's market value.
You know what, JR?
Yeah, that's...
I like Gary.
Yeah,
I like
you
his
like
sense of humor.
George Soros' artificially inflated rap, poisoning the moral youth thing.
You like the way he ran out on his little girl twice? You like
rap causes single motherhood.
the way he broke his mother's heart? You like that, do you?
Yeah.
You know what, JR? I don't think Gary ran out. I think he was pushed.
Bobby, don't fault JR.
We're all in our best.
Everyone has their own degree of good or bad attitude, and yeah, Bobby and Pam are the only ones with a good attitude. The rest of them are all slime. That's my views on the family in a nutshell, but man, Bobby was such a brute. You know, Bobby beats God. Bobby beats God in Dallas. Bobby was booked as strong in Dallas as Hogan was booked in the 80s, and then as Austin was booked in the 90s. They couldn't be surmounted late 90s. And that was like Bobby. Bobby would beat the whole bar down. One by one, they would fall. You know, but then the big mysteries of the show is like, what if Bobby had fought Jock? Oh, that's the stalemate in Dallas lore. If Bobby just had to come to blows with Jock, like right here, right now. Ooh, mystery. But yeah, slim pickings. Bobby and JR, slim pickings every time. But then JR just kept getting up to no good and kept pissing him off. And it's like they end up fighting in the pool, fighting.
Daddy, Mama, but JR, you knew more than any of us that Gary had no head for business, and yet you kept right on pushing your rich boy. Damn it, JR, I liked having him around. His family needed him. He's a good...
It sets him up all kinds of business deals that Gary can't grasp. Yeah, you know, the slime can grasp business deals, but Gary was an artist, but, you know, the artist loses to the business slime in Dallas. Like over and over again. What artist prevailed over him ever? What thinker even prevailed over him? What thinker even existed on the show? Bobby thought about stuff every now and then, but for the most part, Bobby's head too was in business matters and ranch, upkeep matters. You know, I don't think he had a single lofty, noble thought in the history of the show's run. There's the one scene where he visits all his guys in the madhouse. He spent like a season in the madhouse, and then he comes back and he does them good. It's such a cute scene. J.R. Ewing finally does a good thing. It's on YouTube.
Man, and you managed to convince him that being a good man just wasn't quite good enough.
No, the phlegmatic man said, nothing is ipso facto good or bad. Nothing admits effect of bad or good. Bobby, don't you get it? But when I prosper in business, it's like I see the material goods accrue to me. So I see material goods accrue to me, so I'll just prosper in business. Who cares about the other thing? Nothing admits effect of bad or good.
With it, and for that right now.
Nothing is ipso facto bad or good. Kids swim or die. Yeah, the artist, my brother Gary, the loser artist, swim or die. I hope he dies. And the phlegmatic man said, I hope he dies. But then he got his comeuppance. Either by Bobby beat down in the pool or, Cliff screwed him every now and then.
I'm ashamed of being a Ewing. And I'm proud I have Gary Ewing as my brother.
Yeah, Bobby was somewhat okay. Bobby was somewhat okay. They ran out of ideas for her.
I haven't felt like I'm 20 since I was 20. And I do right now. If you wanted to fight, you better believe you got one. So I'm sorry to have to air this type of filth.
It feels like the world's gone backwards.
Well, it has. It has.
I understand. If you are hurting, why don't you vote your way out of it by voting for me?
The cattleman's mouthpiece, the lowing herd is
So you think this is my Waterloo?
Lawyer, huh? Well, I'll teach you law. Western law.
It feels like the world's gone backwards.
Well, it has. It has.
This is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend. He's right, Vance.
The food chain.